You are 12 years old when you first learn that being chosen by the Emperor is a fate worse than any death the galaxy can offer. But by then, it's already too late to scream. Her name is Marin, or at least it was. On the hive world of Ophelia VII, names don't mean much when you're born in the lower stacks, where the air tastes like recycled desperation, and the only light comes from failing lumen strips that flicker like dying stars. She's an orphan, but then again, most children in the Underhive are. Parents die. That's what they do. The manufactorums take them, or the gangs take them, or the simple grinding poverty takes them, worn down to nothing like metal against a whetstone. But on this particular day, Marin stands in Cathedral Square. Actually, it's not a square at all, just a widening in the hab corridors where someone centuries ago carved an aquila into the rust-stained walls, and she watches something descend from the heavens. The Black Ship. You need to understand what this looks like to a child who's never seen anything beautiful in her entire life. The vessel breaks through the chemical clouds that shroud Ophelia VII like a coffin lid, and it's magnificent. Hull plating the color of midnight, trimmed with gold that catches the dying light and transforms it into something almost holy. The plasma drives don't roar, they hum, a deep resonant note that you feel in your chest cavity, in your bones, in the spaces between your thoughts. It sounds like a predator purring. The air changes as it descends. You can taste it, ozone and incense mixing with the usual cocktail of industrial runoff and human desperation. But there's something else too, something Marin doesn't have words for. It's the flavor of fear, yes, but sanctified fear, holy terror, the kind of dread that comes wrapped in devotion. Around her, the crowd presses forward. Thousands of people, most of them parents clutching children with white-knuckled hands. Some of the children are crying. Most aren't. They've been taught since birth that this is an honor, that being chosen by the Psychana is like being touched by the Emperor himself. The local priests have been preparing them for weeks, ever since the astropathic message arrived announcing the Black Ship's approach. Marin watches a boy, maybe 10 years old, being led forward by his mother. The woman is weeping but smiling through her tears. "You're blessed," she keeps saying over and over like a mantra. "You're blessed, you're blessed, you're blessed." The boy looks back at her with eyes too old for his face, and you can see he knows something his mother doesn't, or maybe he suspects. Maybe all of them suspect. On some level they can't articulate. The missionaries emerge from the Black Ship like priests descending from heaven, and that's exactly what they look like, priests. Not the grim enforcers you might expect, not the terrifying psychic inquisitors of children's nightmares. No, these are kind-faced men and women in robes of crimson and gold, wearing gentle smiles and speaking in soft voices that somehow carry across the entire square despite the crowd noise. "Children of the Emperor," one of them calls out, a woman whose face is lined with age and something that might be compassion. "You need not be afraid. You have been chosen for the greatest service humanity can offer. You will stand in his light. You will touch his glory. You will become part of something eternal." The crowd erupts in hymns, badly sung, off-key, desperate hymns to the God Emperor, the kind of singing that sounds less like worship and more like begging. Marin watches as the identified children are led forward, 37 of them marked by the Psychana's instruments and psychic sensitives as potential psychers. Some go willingly, some have to be dragged. The missionaries are patient with both types. They understand fear, they understand resistance. They've done this before, they'll do it again. The Black Ships never stop moving, never stop collecting, never stop harvesting. And as Marin watches, she feels something she's never felt before, envy. She wants to be chosen. She wants to be special. She wants to matter in a universe that has made it abundantly clear that children like her, orphans, underhivers, the forgotten and the disposable, don't matter at all. She wants to escape this place, these suffocating corridors, this slow death by degrees that awaits everyone born in the lower stacks. She presses forward through the crowd, almost unconsciously drawn by that golden light reflecting off the Black Ship's hull. And for just a moment she thinks she feels something, warmth in her chest, golden and pure and perfect, like the Emperor himself is looking at her. But the missionaries don't call her name. The black ship's assessment servitors don't mark her. She's not chosen. Not yet. 3 weeks later, Marin accidentally kills her best friend. His name was Jarek, and they'd been planning to steal food from the Upper Hive's commercial district. A desperate, stupid plan that would probably have gotten them both killed. They were hiding in an abandoned hab unit when the argument started. Marin can't even remember what it was about. Something trivial, something meaningless. The kind of fight children have every day across a million worlds. Jarek said something cruel. Marin thought something crueler. And then the thought had weight. That's the only way she can describe it later when she has time to process what happened. The thought had physical mass, physical force, and it left her mind like a bullet leaving a gun. She felt it exit through her eyes, through her skin, through every pore. For a fraction of a second, the air between them shimmered with colors that don't exist, colors that hurt to perceive. Jarek's head simply came apart, not violently, not explosively. It just stopped being a head and became a fine red mist that hung in the air for a moment before settling like rust-colored snow across the hab unit's corroded walls. Marin stared at what remained of her friend, his body, still standing for a moment before collapsing like a puppet with cut strings, and felt the world tilt sideways. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. She was 12 years old and she just killed someone by thinking too hard. She ran. For 3 days, she hid in the deepest parts of the Underhive, in sections so far down that even the gangs didn't venture there. Places where failed machinery breeds shadows and the only sound is the dripping of unidentifiable liquids through cracked pipes. She didn't sleep. Couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jarek's head becoming mist. And worse, she felt something pressing against her consciousness. Not from outside, but from within. Something vast and hungry and alien scratching at the inside of her skull like a rat trying to get out of a cage. She didn't know the word warp yet. Didn't understand that she'd opened a crack in reality and things on the other side had noticed. But she understood instinctively that something was wrong with her now. Broken. Dangerous. She was contemplating throwing herself into one of the Hive's waste incinerators, seriously contemplating it, standing at the edge with the heat washing over her face, when she felt a hand on her shoulder. The missionary was the same woman from the Cathedral Square ceremony 3 weeks earlier. Up close, her face was even kinder than Marin remembered. Warm brown eyes, smile lines around her mouth. The kind of face that looked like it knew how to comfort frightened children. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," the woman said softly. "We've been looking for you, child. We felt what happened, we felt you, and we're here to help." Behind her stood 3 others, 2 more missionaries and a sanctioned psyker whose eyes had been burned out and replaced with augmetic lenses that glowed with cold blue light. They didn't look threatening. They looked like salvation. "I killed him," Marin whispered. "I killed Jarek. I didn't mean to, but I—" "We know," the woman interrupted gently. "It's not your fault. You didn't understand what you were, what you are, but the Emperor understands. He sees your suffering, he knows your fear, and he's chosen you, Marin, chosen you for something important, something sacred." The woman knelt down so she was at eye level with Marin and placed both hands on the girl's shoulders. Her touch was warm, real. The first genuine human contact Marin had experienced since Jarek died. "You're special," the missionary said. "Blessed. The Emperor has given you a gift." "It's not a gift," Marin choked out. "It's a curse. I'm a monster, You're a psyker," the woman said, and the word hung in the air between them like a benediction. "And the Emperor needs you. Humanity needs you. What you did to your friend was a tragedy, yes. But it happened because you didn't know how to control your power. We can teach you. We can help you. You can take this curse, as you call it, and transform it into something beautiful, something holy." Marin looked past the missionary to the black ship, visible in the distance through a gap in the hab structure. From this angle, backlit by Ophelia VII's sickly sun, it really did look like something divine. A chariot of the gods come to carry her away from this hell. "Will it hurt?" Marin asked, her voice small. The missionary's smile didn't waver. "Only for a moment. And then you'll understand. Then you'll serve him, and through your service you'll save billions, trillions." Every human life in the Imperium depends on people like you, Marin. You're not a monster, you're a hero." Marin wanted to believe her. Wanted it so badly it hurt worse than the thing scratching at the inside of her skull. "Can I go home after?" she asked. "After I'm trained?" The missionary's smile did something strange. It didn't disappear exactly, but it changed, became distant, like looking at a smile through water. "Of course," the woman said. "Of course you can." It was the first lie. There would be many more. The black ship is nothing like Marin expected. She'd imagined cells, chains, darkness, the kind of nightmarish prison ship from the cautionary tales whispered in the Underhive. But instead, she finds herself in what can only be described as a cathedral made mobile. The interior corridors are vast and vaulted, the walls covered in gold leaf that catches the lumens and transforms ordinary light into something that feels almost alive. Devotional murals stretch across every surface, the Emperor in glory, saints in eternal service, humanity ascending toward divinity on wings of faith. There are prayer chambers scattered throughout the ship, small alcoves where children can kneel before carved aquillas and confess their fears to a God who may or may not be listening. The air smells of incense, real incense, not the chemical approximation used in Underhive chapels. It smells expensive, holy. Marin shares a dormitory with 30 other children, all roughly her age, all recently manifested psychers. Some came willingly like her. Others still bear the marks of resistance, bruised wrists from where they had to be restrained, red eyes from crying themselves dry. But within days, even they seem to relax. The ship is warm. The food is real, actual protein, actual nutrients, not the synthetic slurry that passes for sustenance in the hive. The instructors are patient, kind, even. They teach prayers, meditation techniques, ways to quiet the mind and silence the scratching thing that lives just beneath consciousness. It actually helps. Marin finds that when she follows the breathing exercises and recites the litany of tranquility, the pressure in her skull lessens. The colors at the edge of her vision fade. She makes friends. A boy named Torvin, who manifested his power by accidentally starting a fire that killed his entire family. A girl called Syl, whose telepathy was so uncontrolled she could hear every thought of everyone around her until the cacophony drove her nearly insane. They bond over shared trauma, shared fear, shared hope that maybe, just maybe, they can be fixed. At night, lying in her bunk, Marin stares at the ceiling and feels something she hasn't felt in years. Safe. But there's something wrong with the older children. The black ship doesn't just carry newly manifested psychers. It also holds children who have been aboard for months, even years, going through progressive stages of training and evaluation. These older children are quiet, not fearful quiet, not shy quiet, just absent quiet. Like they're listening to something no one else can hear. Marin first notices it in the prayer chambers. She's kneeling before an aquila, whispering the Emperor's prayer, something she's had to memorize. In the Underhive, religion was more superstition than scripture when an older boy enters. He must be 16 or 17, dressed in the gray robes they give to advanced students. He kneels beside her and begins to pray, and his voice sounds like an echo, not metaphorically, literally. Like he's speaking from the bottom of a well or through water or from somewhere very far away. The words are right. The prayer is word perfect, but there's something hollow about it, like listening to a recording rather than a person. Marin glances at him from the corner of her eye. He's staring straight ahead at the aquila and his eyes don't reflect light properly. The lumens should be catching in them, creating those small bright points that prove someone's alive and present. But his eyes are dark, flat, like looking into shallow pools of ink. She watches as he finishes his prayer, stands and leaves. His movements are fluid and correct, but somehow mechanical, like someone operating a body from a distance. Over the following weeks, Marin sees more of them, the hollow children. Some are in the advanced training section she glimpses through half-open doors. Some serve as assistants to the missionaries, carrying equipment or leading groups in prayer. They're functional, obedient, perfect, really, but they're not there. Torvin notices it too. It's like they've been scooped out, he whispers one night after lights out. Like someone took who they were and replaced it with, I don't know, an instruction manual, a prayer book. They go through the motions, but there's nobody home. Maybe that's what happens when you master your power, Syl suggests, but her voice lacks conviction. Maybe you have to sacrifice part of yourself to control it. Maybe, Marin agrees, but she doesn't believe it. The first time she sees a child leave for advanced sanctification and return different, she understands that whatever happens in that process isn't just training, it's transformation, and not the good kind. The girl's name was Kessa. 12 years old, manifested pyrokinesis, scared of her own shadow. She was called for advanced sanctification on a Tuesday. Marin has started tracking days by the ship's cycles, one of the few ways to maintain a sense of time in transit. When Kessa left, she was crying, not from fear of the process itself. The missionaries had assured her it was painless, necessary, blessed. She was crying because she was scared of failing, of being found insufficient. What if I'm not strong enough? She'd asked Marin the night before. What if the Emperor looks at me and finds me wanting? Marin didn't have an answer, still doesn't. Kessa returns 3 days later. She's not crying anymore. She's not anything anymore. She moves to her bunk with precise mechanical steps. She kneels for evening prayers and recites the words perfectly, without hesitation, without emotion. When Marin tries to talk to her, asks how she is, if she's okay, what happened, Kessa turns to face her. And there's nothing behind her eyes, nothing at all. Just golden light, very faint, as if someone has placed a candle inside her skull and is shining it out through the empty sockets. I am blessed, Kessa says in that echo voice. I have been touched by him. I serve eternally. Then she turns away and never speaks to Marin again. That night, Marin lies awake and listens to the sounds of the ship. The hum of plasma drives, the whisper of recycled air through ventilation systems, and underneath it all, so faint she might be imagining it, a sound like distant screaming, or perhaps it's singing. It's hard to tell the difference. 6 months into the journey, 6 months of training, meditation, prayer, and watching her fellow psychers slowly transform into hollow echoes of themselves, Marin is called to meet with her handler. The woman is one of the original missionaries, though not the kind-faced one who found her in the underhive. This one is younger, with sharp features and eyes that miss nothing. They sit in a small chamber decorated with icons of the Emperor in various poses of divine judgment. The woman offers Marin Rikaf, real Rikaf, another luxury Marin has only recently discovered, and they sit in silence for a moment. You've progressed well, the handler finally says. Your control has improved significantly. You haven't had an uncontrolled manifestation in 4 months. That's exceptional. But thank you, Marin says automatically. The words feel hollow in her mouth. Everything feels hollow lately. You have questions, the handler observes. It's not a question itself, it's a statement of fact. Marin hesitates, then nods. Ask. What happens next? Marin says carefully. After we reach Terra, after the soul binding, what happens? The handler smiles. It doesn't reach her eyes. You serve, that's what happens. You become part of something greater than yourself, greater than any individual. You become part of the Emperor's will, his voice, his light. But do we come back? Marin presses. After the boy I saw, Kessa, the others who have had advanced sanctification, they're different, they're blessed, the handler interrupts smoothly. They've been blessed, Marin. They've experienced a fraction of what you'll experience, a preparation for the full glory of the soul binding. What you perceive as difference is actually transcendence. They've moved beyond the petty concerns of individual ego. They serve purely now, perfectly. They're empty, Marin whispers. The handler's smile freezes. For a moment, just a moment, Marin sees something flicker across the woman's face. It might be pity, it might be guilt, it might be nothing at all. The soul binding is communion, the handler says carefully. The Emperor will touch you, all of you, body, mind, and soul. He will see everything you are, everything you've been, everything you might become. And in his infinite wisdom, he will determine how best you can serve. Some become astropaths, his voice across the stars. Some become sanctioned psychers, his warriors and agents. Some become fuel. The word hangs in the air between them like a blade. Fuel. Marin repeats. For the astronomican, the handler explains. The great light that guides humanity through the darkness. It must burn, Marin. And it burns bright only because the faithful feed it. It's the highest honor to become literally part of the Emperor's light, to shine across the galaxy forever, guiding your brothers and sisters home. Forever. Forever. Marin feels something cold settle in her stomach. And if I'm chosen for that, if I become fuel, she struggles to find words for the question. Do I still exist after? The handler's smile has become a rictus now. Something worn out of habit rather than feeling. The part that matters does, she says, and the answer is no answer at all. Marin wants to ask more, wants to demand real answers, truth instead of platitudes, but the look in the handler's eyes stops her. It's a warning, a clear, unmistakable warning. Don't ask questions you don't want answered. Don't seek knowledge that will only make this harder. So Marin nods, thanks the handler for her time, returns to her dormitory and lies in her bunk staring at the ceiling. That night, she overhears two ancient astropaths speaking in the corridor outside. Their voices are barely whispers, but Marin's psychic sensitivity has grown over the past months, and she can hear things ordinary people can't. How long has it been for you? One asks. 43 years since binding, the other replies. The voice is so distant it barely sounds human. I can still remember what it felt like to have a self. Barely, like remembering a dream. Do you miss it? Silence, long, terrible silence. Then, I don't know if I still have enough of me left to miss things. More silence. Then the sound of footsteps moving away down the corridor. Marin pulls her thin blanket over her head and tries not to think about what not enough of me left means. Tries not to imagine being hollowed out, scooped clean, filled with golden light and nothing else. She tries not to think about forever. She fails. The black ship enters the Sol system 6 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days after departing Ophelia VII. Marin knows this because she's been counting. Counting days, counting hours, counting the shrinking time between now and whatever waits at the end of this journey. They gather the psychers in the observation deck, a rare privilege, they're told. Most Terran-bound psychers never see the approach to the throne world, but this ship's commander believes in ritual, in ceremony, in giving the children one last moment of awe before the final plunge. Sol's star blazes in the viewport, and Marin understands for the first time why ancient cultures worship the sun. It's not a metaphor, it's not symbolic. The sheer presence of it, the raw power pouring off that distant sphere of fusion, makes something in her soul want to kneel, and she's standing at the edge of the system. She can't imagine what it must have been like for pre-spaceflight humans, staring up at that apocalyptic glory day after day. But Terra itself, Terra defies description, not because it's beautiful, though the parts of it that aren't buried under millennia of construction might be, somewhere beneath the endless sprawl. No, it defies description because it's incomprehensible. The hive cities make Ophelia VII look like a village. The orbital installations blot out sections of the sky. The sheer density of human construction, millennia of building on top of building, civilization on top of civilization, create structures so vast they have their own weather patterns. And at the heart of it all, visible even from orbit, the imperial palace. It's not gold. That's the first thing Marin notices. All the devotional art, all the murals and icons, they show the palace as gleaming gold, radiant with holy light. But from space, it's actually gray. Ancient gray stone and metal worn by countless ages, scarred by wars that ended before Marin's planet was even colonized. It's vast, so vast her mind refuses to process the scale. Continent-sized, mountain-tall. A city within a city within a city, spiraling inward toward something. Even from here, even through the void and the distance and the layers of reality between them, Marin can feel it. A presence, a weight, a hunger so profound it creates its own gravity, pulling at her mind the way Terra's mass pulls at the ship. "The Emperor," someone whispers beside her. Torvin, his face pressed against the viewport, tears streaming down his cheeks. "He's really there. He's real." "Of course he's real," Syl says, but her voice wavers. "We've always known he's real." "No," Torvin shakes his head. "We believed he was real. That's different from knowing, but I can feel him now. Can't you? He's. He trails off, unable to find words. Marin understands why. There aren't words for this. The presence emanating from the palace isn't like the faith she was taught in the Underhive, vague and comforting and ultimately theoretical. This is concrete. This is tangible. This is a God made manifest, and the weight of his existence presses against her psychic senses like a thumb against an eyeball. It feels like love. Overwhelming, all-consuming love. The love of a creator for creation, a father for his children, a shepherd for his flock. But underneath the love, or maybe woven through it, inseparable from it, there's something else. Hunger, not metaphorical hunger, not the spiritual hunger for righteousness or justice or any noble thing. Just hunger, pure, simple, endless hunger. The kind of fire has. Marin closes her eyes, and behind her eyelids she sees it clearly for the first time. The golden light that's been surrounding them since they boarded the black ship. That's been bathing them in warmth and comfort and the promise of salvation. It's not light at all. It's a throat made of light. And the black ship is carrying them directly down it, on a leash made of faith they tied around their own necks. "What do you think happens?" Marin whispers, not really asking anyone, "when your God is not a metaphor, when salvation and annihilation are the same thing, when the light you've worshipped your entire life is actually feeding on something?" No one answers, perhaps because they don't have answers, or perhaps because on some level they already know. The black ship continues its approach. The palace grows larger in the viewport. The golden light grows brighter, and somewhere deep in the ship's hold, Marin can hear singing, or screaming. It's still hard to tell the difference. Do you understand what we're approaching now? Not just as observers, but as participants. Because that's what you need to grasp as we move forward into this nightmare. You're not just learning about the fate of Psychers in the Imperium, you're living it. You're 12 years old, you've just developed a power you can't control, and you've been promised salvation. And you're about to discover that the God waiting at the end of this journey isn't going to save you. He's going to eat you. The golden throne is not a throne, it's a mouth. And it has been eating souls since before your world knew there were stars. Let's pause for a moment. Before we follow Marin into the depths of the Imperial Palace, before we witness what happens in that final chamber, you need to understand the scale of what we're discussing. Because the horror of the Astronomicon isn't just personal, it's cosmic. It's horror measured not in individual suffering, though there's plenty of that, but in epics, in billions, in a feeding that has never stopped, not even for a moment, for 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Think about that number. Really think about it. Human civilization as we currently understand it, everything from the first agricultural settlements to the smartphone you're probably holding, spans roughly 12,000 years. The entire length of human history from the end of the last ice age to now could fit into the Imperium's current age with room to spare. And for every single day of those 10,000 years, the Golden Throne has consumed 1,000 souls. Let's do the mathematics, shall we? Because numbers have power. They transform abstract horror into concrete atrocity. 1,000 psychers per day. Multiply that by 365 days. That's 365,000 souls per year. Now multiply that by 10,000 years. 3,650,000,000 souls. Consumed, burned, fed into the Emperor's light. To put that in perspective, that's approximately half of Earth's current population. Imagine every person in India, China, and Southeast Asia combined. Now imagine all of them, every single one, fed into a machine over the course of 10 millennia. A machine that doesn't kill them, not quickly, but burns them slowly, conscious and aware for hours or days or subjective centuries. And the machine never stops, never falters, never flickers, because if it did, humanity dies. That's the Astronomicon. That's the great work. That's the single most important structure in the entire Imperium, more vital than the manufactorums that produce weapons, more critical than the forge worlds that build ships, more essential than the administratum that governs a million worlds. Because without the Astronomicon, there is no Imperium. There are only isolated systems, cut off from each other, drowning alone in the dark. But what is it exactly? What is this lighthouse built from screaming? The Astronomicon is a psychic beacon powered by the God Emperor of mankind and fueled by the souls of psychers. It projects a light into the warp, the roiling dimension of madness and horror that underlies real space, that allows navigators to plot courses through the immaterium. Without it, warp travel becomes not merely dangerous but effectively impossible. Ships would be lost, crews would be driven insane, entire fleets would simply vanish into the nightmare dimension and never return. But here's what they don't tell you in the Munitorum propaganda. The Astronomicon isn't generating its light from the Emperor's divine will alone. He's not simply manifesting psychic energy from nothing. The laws of physics, even psychic physics, don't work that way. No, the Emperor is converting matter into energy. Specifically, he's converting souls into psychic radiation. Think of it like a lighthouse, yes, but the light isn't generated by electricity. It's generated by feeding people into the engine, whole, alive, conscious. 1,000 people per day grabbed by their souls and burned like oil in a lamp. The metaphor isn't perfect. Metaphors never are. But try this image. Imagine a vast furnace. Not a physical furnace, but a psychic one, existing partially in real space and partially in the warp. Now imagine feeding children into that furnace. They don't burn up instantly. No, they burn slowly, their essences consumed over hours or days, their consciousness remaining intact throughout the entire process. Their screaming, psychic screaming, the kind that reverberates through dimensions, becomes the fuel that creates the light. And the light shines across the galaxy, beautiful and terrible and absolutely necessary. That's the Astronomicon. And now you need to understand what makes someone fuel. What is a psyker, really? What does it mean to be psychically sensitive in the Warhammer 40,000 universe? The textbook definition is simple. A psyker is a human who can perceive and manipulate the warp. They're mutations, essentially, random genetic variations that create a connection between human consciousness and the immaterium. Some experts theorize it's the next stage in human evolution. Others call it a curse. Both are correct, but let me tell you what it feels like. Because understanding the experiential reality of being a psyker is crucial to understanding why the Emperor's solution to the psyker problem is so necessary and so horrific. Imagine waking up one day and discovering you can taste colors. Not synesthesia, not some quirky neurological crossing of wires. You literally taste colors with your mouth. Blue tastes like copper. Red tastes like blood because it is blood, at least symbolically, and symbols have power in the warp. Yellow tastes like fear. Now imagine that every emotion around you has a physical presence. Not metaphorical, physical. When someone near you feels angry, you feel pressure against your skin, hot and invasive and wrong. When someone grieves, you experience their sorrow as actual weight, pressing down on your shoulders until you can barely stand. When someone feels lust, you taste it in the back of your throat like spoiled meat. Every death nearby is a wound in your mind. Every birth is an explosion of sensation. You are a crack in the membrane between reality and unreality, and things on the other side can feel the crack. They press against it. They whisper through it. They promise you power, pleasure, knowledge, anything you desire if you'll just open a little wider. And some psychers do. They can't help it. The pressure builds and builds until something has to give, and when it gives, demons pour through the crack. The psyker becomes a gate, and hell comes through. This is why the Imperium hunts psychers so relentlessly. Not out of cruelty, but necessity. An untrained, uncontrolled psyker is a demonic incursion waiting to happen. A single child manifesting psychic powers in the wrong way, at the wrong time, can doom an entire hive city. Billions dead. All because one frightened 12-year-old couldn't control what they were thinking. So the Imperium offers a choice. though choice is perhaps too generous a word. The choice is this: die screaming as demons use your soul as a doorway, or submit to the black ships, be taken to Terra, and be saved. The salvation comes in several forms. Some strong psychers are trained as astropaths, telepaths who communicate across interstellar distances. Some become sanctioned psychers, bound with wards and chains, psychic and physical, their power harnessed for the Imperium's use. Some are inducted into other organizations, the Inquisition, the Grey Knights, various other specialized agencies. And some, the vast majority, actually become fuel. It's not punishment, it's not malice, it's just mathematics. The Imperium needs 1,000 psychers per day, every single day, to keep the astronomic burning. Most manifested psychers aren't strong enough to be useful as astropaths or sanctioned psychers. They're not weak enough to be harmless, but not strong enough to be tools. So they become fuel, because even if they can't be useful in other ways, they can still burn. Efficiency. That's what the Imperium excels at. The cold, pragmatic efficiency of turning every resource, including human souls, to its maximum use. The black ships are the mechanism by which this fuel is harvested. The fleet is run by the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, a branch of the Imperium specifically dedicated to managing humanity's psyker population. Their vessels, hundreds of them, possibly thousands, the exact number is classified, roam continuously throughout Imperial space. They follow ancient routes mapped out over millennia, visiting millions of worlds on cycles that span decades or centuries, depending on the world's importance and psyker manifestation rates. When a black ship arrives, local authorities are expected to have gathered all manifested psychers, or at least all the ones they've identified and captured. Some worlds are efficient about this, with dedicated Arbite squads and psychic detection equipment. Other worlds are less organized. Rural or feral worlds might not even realize they're supposed to be collecting psychers. Some try to hide their psychers, protect them, out of misguided love or genuine rebellion. It doesn't matter. The black ships carry sanctioned psychers whose sole job is detection. They can sense psychic potential from orbit. They can feel the disturbance an untrained psycher makes in the warp space, like a shark sensing blood in water. The collection process isn't usually violent. The Imperium has learned over 10,000 years that terrorized psychers are dangerous psychers. Fear makes them lose control. Loss of control means demonic incursions. Demonic incursions mean the black ship might lose valuable cargo, or worse, become infested itself. So they use missionaries, kind faces, soft words. They frame it as blessing, as honor, as holy service. They take children, preferably, because children adapt better. Because children's souls are more flexible, more resilient. Because children can be shaped and molded and prepared for consumption more easily than adults who have had years to develop strong senses of self. The black ships don't have cells. They have dormitories, prayer chambers, training facilities. The children are fed well, treated gently, educated in imperial doctrine and psychic control techniques. It's not cruelty, it's preparation. You don't brutalize something you're about to feed to your god. You sanctify it, purify it, make it worthy of the sacrifice. Like preparing a feast, they are the feast. The ships also carry null fields, psychic dampening technologies that make it harder for untrained psychers to accidentally open doorways to the warp. The fields feel like being buried alive, like suffocating in cotton, like existing underwater. Every instinct screams at you that something is wrong, but you can't identify what. It's the absence of something you didn't know you needed, the way a fish might feel if you removed water but kept it alive somehow. The sorting happens continuously throughout the journey. The Telepathica's experts evaluate each child, testing strength, control, resilience. They're looking for potential. Can this one be trained as an astropath, as a sanctioned psycher, as something specialized, or are they just fuel? The criteria is efficiency, always efficiency. The Imperium doesn't waste resources. If you can be more useful as a tool than as fuel, you become a tool. If not, well, the fire is always hungry. Terra itself is the final preparation, the throne world. Humanity's cradle, now buried under countless millennia of construction. The entire planet is a monument to human ambition and human excess and human desperation, all rolled into one incomprehensible mass. When Marin's black ship enters Terran orbit, the processing begins immediately. The children are divided into groups based on their preliminary evaluations. Those identified as potential astropaths are separated. Those marked for other specialized training are removed to different facilities, and the rest, the majority, are led deeper into the palace. The Imperial Palace is, you can't comprehend it. I'm sorry, but you can't. The human brain isn't designed to process structures on that scale. It covers thousands of square miles. It rises miles into the sky. It burrows miles into the earth. It has sections that are older than human civilization, built during the dark age of technology. It has sections built yesterday. And all of it, every corridor, every chamber, every towering statue and golden relief and devotional mural, all of it leads inward, toward the center, toward the heart of the entire Imperium, toward the golden throne. The children are led down corridors that feel like throats. That's not metaphor. The architecture is deliberately organic in places, curved and pulsing with machinery that resembles intestinal peristalsis more than mechanical movement. The air grows warmer as they descend, thicker. You can taste it, ozone and incense and something else, something that might be fear or might be the residue of 10,000 years of souls passing through these halls. They're taken to waiting chambers, vast rooms that can hold thousands of psychers at once, all in various stages of preparation. Some have been here for weeks, some for months. They're fed the finest foods, real protein, real nutrients, imported delicacies from across the Imperium. They're bathed in sanctified water. They're anointed with holy oils. Priests come daily to lead them in prayers, to inscribe their skin with protective wards, to prepare their minds for what's coming. Protective wards. That's what they call them. But Marin, watching the process, begins to understand the truth. The wards aren't there to protect the psyker. They're there to keep the psyker intact long enough, to prevent them from dissolving prematurely, to ensure the soul reaches the Emperor's presence in one piece, ready for consumption. They're not being protected. They're being preserved, like food in stasis, like meat being cured. The presence grows stronger the deeper they go. That vast, incomprehensible awareness that emanates from the Golden Throne. It's not passive, you don't just sense it, you feel it actively perceiving you, examining you, judging your usefulness. And it's hungry. The love is real, Marin realizes. That overwhelming, crushing love that seems to pour off the palace like radiation. The Emperor loves humanity, truly deeply, with an intensity that would burn away a normal human sanity. He loves his species with the fervor of a creator and the desperation of a parent watching their children march toward extinction. But love and hunger aren't mutually exclusive. A mother bear loves her cubs, and she'll eat them if she's starving and they won't survive anyway. The Emperor loves humanity, and he devours his children to save them. Marin stands in the final preparation chamber, a cathedral-sized space with golden light pouring from everywhere and nowhere, with 10,000 other psychers all waiting for their turn, and she finally fully understands. She's not here to be saved. She's here to save, not herself. Never herself. She's here to become part of something larger, to be broken down and rebuilt as fuel, to burn in the light so that others might see by it. She's here to die for the God Emperor of mankind. And the part that terrifies her most, the part that she'll remember in her final moments of individual consciousness, is that she still loves him, still wants to serve, still feels that golden warmth in her chest and interprets it as blessing, even knowing its hunger, even understanding its consumption, even recognizing the throat for what it is. She walks toward it anyway, because what else is there to do? Where else is there to go? Run and demons take her. Resist and the Imperium kills her. Submit and the Emperor eats her. At least the Emperor's hunger serves a purpose. At least burning in the Astronomicon means something. At least her death will save lives, even if those lives will never know her name, never understand her sacrifice, never comprehend the price paid for their safe passage through the warp. At least it matters. We're standing at the precipice now, at the edge of the throat. The golden light is almost blinding, and through it, just barely visible, you can see the chamber ahead. The throne room. The place where God sits on his mountain of skulls and machinery, eating the faithful to stay alive one more day. Do you understand yet? Do you grasp the architecture of this horror? This isn't cruelty, it's not evil, it's necessity. And that's what makes it unforgivable. The Emperor isn't a monster, he's just hungry, and your food. And now it's time to be eaten. The soul binding takes 17 seconds. You will experience each one for eternity. The chamber of the golden throne defies description, not because it's indescribable, but because your mind refuses to hold the memory. Like staring at the sun, the details burn themselves out of your perception almost immediately. But I'll try. You deserve to know what waits at the end of faith. The first thing you notice is the scale. The throne room is a cavern, but calling it a cavern is like calling an ocean a puddle. The ceiling disappears into darkness miles above. The walls curve away into distance that shouldn't exist within physical space, some kind of spatial folding, technology or psychic manipulation that creates interior dimensions larger than the exterior structure should allow. And the machinery. Dear God Emperor, the machinery. Miles of cables, each one thick as a hab building, writhing across the floor and walls and ceiling like petrified tentacles. Conduits carrying power, cooling systems pumping rivers of liquid nitrogen to keep ancient systems from melting down, plasma reactors the size of city blocks humming with barely contained fury. The sounds assault you, not loud but pervasive, a symphony of mechanical suffering that gets inside your bones. Grinding gears. Hissing coolant, the shriek of metal under stress that's been ongoing for 10,000 years. Life support systems that look more like torture devices, mechanisms whose purpose you can't begin to guess. Servo skulls by the thousands floating through the chamber like carrion birds, carrying out maintenance tasks on systems so ancient their original functions have been forgotten. And at the center of it all, the golden throne itself. It's not gold, that's another lie. From a distance in devotional art it gleams. Up close it's dark. The gold leaf has tarnished and flaked away over millennia, revealing the dark metal beneath. Adamantium, probably, or something older. Something that predates the current Imperium's technology. The throne is massive, cathedral-sized on its own, and covered in cables and wires and tubes that feed into and out of it like veins. Upon the throne sits something that was once human, the Emperor of mankind, Master of Terra, Lord of the Imperium, God made flesh. And he's wrong, you can't look at him directly. Your eyes slide away, refusing to focus. But in your peripheral vision, in stolen glances, you get impressions. A figure impossibly tall, wrapped in machinery that might be life support or might be restraints. It's impossible to tell where flesh ends and mechanism begins. Skeletal, withered, like something that's been mummifying for 10,000 years but refuses to finish dying. His face, if that's a face, is hollow. Not metaphorically. There are literal hollows where features should be, and light pours from them. Golden light, harsh and beautiful and terrible, spilling from eye sockets and open mouth in places where the flesh has simply worn away. He doesn't look dead. Death would be mercy. He looks hollowed. Like something has been wearing his skin from the inside, using it up, burning through it one cell at a time. Like a candle that's been burning for 10,000 years and is now just a stub of wax around a flame that refuses to go out. And surrounding the throne, barely visible through the golden light, you see them. The souls, millions of them, flickering presences, barely more than afterimages, caught in the Emperor's aura like insects in amber. They're still conscious, still aware, still serving, still burning. This is what waits at the end of faith. This is the reward for devotion. This is the communion they promised you. Marin is led forward with her cohort, 100 young psychers, all approximately the same strength level, all suitable for immediate conversion to fuel. They hold hands as they walk, not because they're required to, but because they're terrified. Even now, even knowing what's coming, they seek comfort in human touch. They're singing. It's expected, traditional even. The hymn of eternal service learned during their months of preparation. But their voices sound underwater, distant, like the sound is having to travel through layers of reality to reach their own ears. I am the Emperor's light in darkness. I am his voice in silence. I am his will made manifest. I burn for him eternal. I serve beyond death. I am. The words trail off as they draw closer, because with each step the golden light intensifies. It's not metaphorical light. It's real, pouring from the Emperor's form like radiation. But light isn't supposed to have texture. Light isn't supposed to press against you like a physical thing, isn't supposed to feel simultaneously like warm bathwater and acid rain. Your mind opens involuntarily as you approach, like a flower exposed to sunlight, except the sun is psychic and the flower is your soul, and opening means becoming vulnerable to something infinite and starving. You can feel the others walking beside you. Not physically, you can barely feel your physical body anymore, but psychically you sense them, their terror, their faith. Their souls flickering beside yours like candles in a cathedral, so fragile, so temporary, so soon to be consumed. The moment his attention turns to you is like being struck by lightning, except lightning kills you instantly. This is slower. This is thorough. You feel him look at you. Not with eyes. He has no eyes that work anymore, just burning sockets that hold something else entirely. But you are perceived by something infinite, something that exists partially in real space, and partially in the warp, and partially in dimensions you don't have names for. Something that is simultaneously the man who united Terra 30,000 years ago, and the god that mankind has made of his corpse, and the dying star that's been burning on pure psychic might for 100 centuries. The initial sensation is overwhelming love. I need you to understand this. It's not false. It's not a trick. The Emperor does love humanity. You feel it in that first moment of contact, all of it, the full weight of 10,000 years of love and desperation and sacrifice and stubborn, furious refusal to let the species die. He loves you, truly deeply, with an intensity that makes every human relationship you've ever had seem like a shadow of the real thing. You understand for one perfect moment why humanity worships him, because he is magnificent, he is divine, he is worth dying for. You feel accepted, seen, known. Every secret fear you've ever had, every moment of doubt, every shame, he knows all of it and loves you anyway. You are part of something eternal. You matter. You are. Then you feel the pull. His attention isn't passive, it's extractive. Imagine someone grabbing a thread from your sweater and pulling. Except the sweater is your soul and the thread is everything you are, your memories, your personality, your sense of self, everything that makes you you rather than just a collection of psychic energy. It doesn't hurt, not at first, it's just strange. You feel yourself being drawn out like water through a straw, like smoke up a chimney. Your soul, the essential you, is moving from wherever it's been housed, your body, your mind, the space between, toward the golden light. Your memories begin to surface involuntarily, not in order, not in any pattern you can control. They just emerge, float to the surface like bodies from a lake. He's reading you, all of you, every thought you've ever had, every dream, every nightmare, every petty cruelty and small kindness, every moment of joy, of sorrow, of fear, of hope. Your entire life spools out before him like a scroll being unrolled, and he reads every word. But he doesn't judge. That's what's so terrible. There's no judgment here, no divine assessment of worth. He's not evaluating whether you deserve heaven or hell. He's just consuming, reading and consuming in the same motion, like someone eating while reading a book, processing both simultaneously. Your first kiss, tasted and burned away. The memory of your mother's face, absorbed and gone. Your name, he takes that early, Marin. The self-concept attached to that name, the identity built around it, the associations and memories and sense of continuity. All of it dissolves into the golden light, and you watch it happen. You're conscious throughout. You feel yourself being unmade, thread by thread, memory by memory, thought by thought. This isn't torture. Torture is designed to cause suffering. This is absorption. You're not being destroyed, you're being digested. Your essence is being broken down into component parts, psychic energy, life force, soul stuff, and converted into fuel. Part of you is already burning in the astronomicon. You can feel it, that part of yourself is now light, shining across the galaxy, perceived by navigators millions of miles away as a golden beacon in the warp. That part of you will never stop shining. It's burning now. It will burn tomorrow. It will burn 10,000 years from now. Forever. And you're still conscious, still aware. Still you, or at least enough of you remains to think, I am being eaten by God. In that instant of horrified clarity, you see them. The others, the billions who came before. They're not gone. They're here, caught in his aura, burning in the astronomicon, existing in a state between life and death that makes both concepts meaningless. You see souls that have been burning for days, for years, for centuries. Some are still recognizably people, individuals with thoughts and memories and desperate, useless prayers for it to stop. Others have fragmented, dissolved into pure sensation, no longer capable of thought but somehow still capable of suffering. And they're all singing, or screaming, or both. The distinction has ceased to matter. You see Kessa, the girl from the black ship, the one who went to advanced sanctification and came back hollow. You understand now. Part of her is here, caught in the Emperor's light, burned but not consumed. That's what they do to potential astropaths during the preliminary binding. They feed part of you to the fire, see if you can survive it, see if there's enough left to be useful. She survived. What remains of her is serving on some black ship, bringing new children to the feast. But the part that's here, the part that's burning, is still aware, still screaming, still praying for death that will never come. You try to pull back. Instinct, survival reflex, the same way you'd pull your hand from fire, but there's nothing to pull back with. The part of you that could choose to resist, the will, the autonomy, the self-determination, that part is already gone, already burned, already converted into light. What remains isn't capable of resistance. What remains can only do one thing: serve. Not because you want to, but because the part of you that could want is gone, consumed, burned away in that first moment of contact, so thoroughly you can barely remember it existed. You don't choose to continue feeding yourself to the fire. But you continue anyway, because the part that could refuse has been eaten. 17 seconds. That's how long the soul binding takes, supposedly. 17 seconds from initial contact to completion. But time doesn't work normally here. The Emperor exists partially in the warp, where time is more suggestion than law. You experience those 17 seconds as 17 eternities. Every moment stretched to infinity, every instant of dissolution experienced in excruciating detail. You feel yourself being sorted. The Emperor, or the machine he's become, or the collective will that wears his corpse, nobody knows anymore, determines what you're useful for. You're strong, stronger than average. You could be trained. Could be shaped into an astropath, perhaps, if enough of you survives this first touch. And so he takes less of you, not out of mercy, out of efficiency. He burns through 40%, 50%, 60% of your soul, converting it to fuel, but leaves the rest. Leaves just enough for a personality to cling to. Just enough for memory to function, just enough to serve. The part of you that burns, that 60% that's now light, doesn't die. Death would be mercy. It remains conscious, aware, eternally burning in the astronomicon, forever. The part that remains, the 40% still attached to your body, your physical form lying somewhere on the floor of the throne room, that part is different now. Hollowed, filled with golden light where your sense of self used to live. You're still you, technically. You remember being Marin. You remember your life, you remember everything, but you can't feel it anymore. The emotions attached to those memories, the meaning they held, the person you were who experienced them, that's gone. Burned away. You're a recording of yourself now, a copy made from memory, and through the motions of personhood without quite being a person anymore. And you're still connected to him, permanently, irreversibly. A thread of golden light runs from somewhere in the back of your mind, the place where your soul used to be, back to the golden throne, back to him, back to the eternal fire. You'll never be separate again, never be just yourself again. You're part of him now, part of the light, part of the machine. And in quiet moments for the rest of your life, you'll feel him feeding. Not on you, you've already paid your price, but on the new arrivals, the daily 1,000, the eternal tribute. You'll feel them burning, feel their confusion, their terror, their final desperate prayers. Feel them dissolve into light. And the worst part, the part that breaks something fundamental in what remains of your soul, is that you'll help deliver them. Because that's what astropaths do, some of them. They serve on black ships. They guide the next generation to Terra. They smile kindly at frightened children and tell them everything will be fine. And the part of you that could refuse to do this, that could rebel, that could even feel guilty about it, that part is burning in the Astronomicon. Forever. Marin wakes up in a recovery chamber. She doesn't remember being moved, doesn't remember leaving the throne room. Her last clear memory is of the golden light, and then nothing, just a gap. Like part of her timeline has been redacted. She tries to sit up. Her body responds sluggishly, as if she's operating it remotely. From a distance, through water, someone approaches. A medical servitor probably, though she can't see it clearly. Because she can't see at all, she realizes. Not in the normal way. Her eyes are gone. She reaches up to touch her face, and where her eyes should be, there are only smooth, scarred hollows. The sight, the psychic sight that's replaced her physical vision, shows her the servitor as a dim candle of life force, mechanical and barely alive. Shows her the walls of the recovery chamber as thin membrane between real space and the warp. Shows her the souls of other psychers recovering in nearby chambers, flickering weakly as they adjust to their new existence. But when she tries to see herself, tries to look at her own soul, she sees only a hole filled with golden light. An absence where a person should be, a socket that once held an eye but now holds only service and obedience and an eternal connection to something hungry. She opens her mouth to scream, but what comes out is a prayer. I am the Emperor's light in darkness. I am his voice in silence. I serve beyond death. I am. She stops, tries again. Another prayer emerges. She tries to say no, tries to say stop, tries to say anything that isn't religious devotion. She can't, the words won't form. The part of her that could choose to speak rebellion was burned away. What remains can only pray, can only serve, can only obey. She is Astropath Tertius Marin now. That's her designation, her function, her entire purpose. And somewhere in the heart of the Astronomicon and the eternal fire, another part of her is still burning, still aware, still screaming, still serving. Forever, do you understand now? Do you see the architecture of this horror? This is the reward for faith. This is communion with the divine. This is what happens when salvation and damnation are the same thing. The Emperor loves you, truly loves you, and that love is hungry. And now you know what it means to be devoured by something holy. But we're not done. Not yet, because you need to understand what comes after the binding, what it means to exist as a hollow thing, what it means to serve with the parts of yourself that remain, what it means to live as a corpse that hasn't finished dying yet. And worse, much worse, you need to understand what happens to the ones who aren't strong enough to survive even partially, the ones who burn completely, the ones who become the light itself. Some of you survives, they call this mercy. They're wrong. Consciousness returns in fragments, not all at once. That would be too much, too overwhelming for what remains of you. Instead, awareness seeps back slowly like water filling a container with cracks in it. Some of it reaches the bottom, most of it leaks out. You remember your name. Marin, Astropath Tertius Marin, they tell you. The Tertius indicates your rank within the Telepathica's hierarchy, 3rd grade, qualified for standard astropathic communication duties, suitable for assignment to naval vessels or administratum facilities, or wherever the Imperium needs a psychic messenger. You remember the binding, or rather, you remember that it happened. The details have that peculiar quality of trauma memories, simultaneously crystal clear and completely obscured, like trying to remember a dream that was actually a nightmare that was actually real. You remember the golden throne, the light, the pull, the sensation of being read and consumed simultaneously like a book being burned page by page while someone recites your contents. And you remember burning. Part of you is still burning, right now, this moment. While you lie in this recovery chamber in this body that technically survived, part of you, the majority of you actually, if souls can be measured quantitatively, is burning in the Astronomicon. That part will never stop burning, but you survived. At least something calling itself you survived. and the Imperium calls this a success, a good outcome. You're one of the lucky ones. You're starting to understand that luck is relative. Let's talk about gradations, because not all psychers are consumed the same way. The Imperium, in its terrible efficiency, has developed a classification system. 3 primary grades of psychic exploitation, each serving a different function. Grade 1, Astropaths. These are psychers who survive the soul binding with enough of their original self intact to be functional. The Emperor has touched them, consumed a portion of their soul, usually 40–70%, but left enough behind to maintain personality, memory, basic identity. They're bound to him permanently, their remaining soul stuff permanently altered by contact with the divine, but they can still think, still serve as individuals, still function as tools rather than fuel. Astropaths are created to serve as the Imperium's communication network. They project their consciousness into the warp, send psychic messages across interstellar distances, receive and translate the thoughts of other astropaths millions of light years away. They're invaluable, irreplaceable. The entire administrative structure of the Imperium depends on them. They're also dying, slowly, constantly. Every message sent carves a piece from what remains of them. Every warp dive erodes them further. They last perhaps 20 to 30 years on average before there's not enough left to function. Then they're retired, a euphemism, and their remaining essence is recycled, fed back to the Astronomicon to burn in the light one final time. Grade 2, Sanctioned Psychers. These are bound differently, not to the Astronomicon, but to their own power. The Emperor's touch doesn't consume them so much as chain them. Their souls are wrapped in psychic restraints, wards carved into their very essence, fail-safes that will kill them instantly if they lose control. They're living weapons kept on a leash, forever one moment of weakness away from execution by the very bindings that allow them to exist. They serve in various capacities: Imperial Guard Psyker auxiliaries, inquisitorial operatives, interrogators, diviners. They're more autonomous than astropaths in some ways, less in others. They don't have a permanent connection to the Golden Throne eating away at them, but they're never free, never safe. The bindings itch, metaphysically speaking. A constant reminder that you're a weapon that might misfire, and when weapons misfire, they're destroyed. Grade 3, Choir Psychers. These are the fuel, pure and simple. They're not strong enough to be useful as astropaths, not controlled enough to be viable as sanctioned psychers. They're expendable. Combustible. Their souls are fed directly into the Astronomicon, consumed completely over hours or days, burned down to nothing in the eternal fire. They don't survive the soul binding at all. There's no after for them, just burning, just service. Just the slow dissolution of everything. They are into light and heat and psychic radiation that allows navigators to plot courses through hell. 1,000 per day, every day, forever. Marin is grade 1, an astropath, which means part of her survived. She's starting to wish it hadn't. Recovery takes months, not physical recovery. The soul binding doesn't damage your body, not directly. It's your mind that needs time to adjust, time to accept what's been done to you, time to learn to function as a partial person, a fragment pretending to be whole. The first challenge is the eyes, or rather the absence of them. The soul binding burns them out. Always. It's not intentional. It's just a side effect of having the God Emperor of mankind look directly at your soul through your eye sockets. The psychic energy discharge is simply too intense for organic ocular tissue to survive. So every soul-bound psyker is blind. Physically, permanently, irreversibly blind. But you can still see. After a fashion, psychic sight replaces physical vision, a form of warp perception that allows you to sense souls, psychic energy, the underlying reality beneath the physical world. It's not better than physical sight. It's not even equivalent. It's just different. Alien. Wrong. Physical world looks thin now, like tissue paper stretched over something writhing underneath. You see through walls, not because the walls are transparent, but because they're not as real as the things beyond them. You see souls more clearly than faces. A person approaching you is first perceived as a candle flame of life force and only secondarily as a physical form. You can never see yourself. When you try, when you reach for the sense of your own soul, the way you might look down at your own body, there's nothing there. Just a hole, an absence, a socket where a soul should be, now filled with golden light that isn't yours. That will never be yours again. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. You know they exist. You know they're there. But you can't perceive them directly, can't examine them, can't ever truly know what you look like from the outside, except worse, because you remember what used to be there. You remember having a self you could perceive, and now there's just emptiness, service, obedience, and the golden light of the Emperor's will wearing your hollowed-out soul like a glove. The second challenge is the connection. You're still connected to him, permanently, irreversibly. It's not metaphorical or symbolic. There's an actual psychic tether running from the place where your soul used to be back to Terra, back to the Golden Throne, back to the eternal fire. The distance doesn't matter. You could be on the other side of the galaxy and you'd still feel it. A thread of gold running through your consciousness, thin but unbreakable, pulling gently but constantly on what remains of you. In quiet moments, when you're not actively working, not projecting your mind through the warp or receiving messages or performing your duties, you can feel him feeding. Not on you. You've already paid your tribute. The part of you that burns in the astronomicon is separate now, permanently detached, no longer contributing to your individual consciousness. But you feel the others. The new arrivals, the daily 1,000. You feel them die, or not die, that's not the right word. You feel them dissolve. 1,000 deaths per day, and you sense everyone like an echo, a ripple through the connection, a moment of confusion, terrapain, dissolution, and then they're gone. Or not gone, transformed, converted from person to fuel, from individual to light. You try to sleep, but he never sleeps. The Golden Throne never rests. The feeding never stops. So when you close your eyes, your psychic eyes, your warp sight, you see them burning. See the astronomicon from the inside. See millions of souls caught in the fire, screaming or singing or both. And you know that part of you is there. Part of what you were, the part that could feel joy perhaps, or the part that could choose freely, or the part that made you you rather than just a functional approximation, is burning among them. Forever. You try to dream, but you dream his dreams, which aren't dreams at all. They're not hopes or fears or unconscious processing. They're just hunger, service. The screaming of the warp pressed back by will alone. The weight of 10,000 years of refusing to die, of holding back hell through sheer stubbornness, of consuming your own children to save them from something worse. You wake up, if you can call it waking, when you never truly slept, and you can taste copper and ash and the residue of burned souls in the back of your throat. This is what it means to be soul-bound. This is the reward for being strong enough to survive. You get to exist as a hollow thing. A tool that remembers being human, a relay station for psychic messages, permanently connected to a God who might not even know you exist as an individual anymore. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that you still love him. The part of you that could doubt was consumed. The part that could rebel was burned away. What remains is still faithful, still devoted, still willing to serve, not because you choose to, but because the part that could choose is gone. The work of an astropath is both essential and horrifying. Let me explain what your existence becomes. Your primary function is communication, faster-than-light communication specifically. Standard electromagnetic signals, radio, laser, anything physical, are limited to the speed of light. In a galaxy where the nearest star systems are light-years apart and the Imperium spans millions of inhabited worlds, light-speed communication is functionally useless. By the time a message from one side of the Imperium reaches the other, centuries have passed. So the Imperium uses psychers, astropaths who can project their consciousness into the warp, the dimension of chaos and madness that underlies reality, and communicate directly, mind to mind, across impossible distances. But the warp isn't empty. It's not a neutral medium through which thoughts travel safely. It's hell. Literally, theologically, practically hell. It's inhabited by entities that eat thoughts, that hunger for human consciousness the way sharks hunger for blood in the water. Every time you send a message, You're throwing your mind into an ocean of predators and screaming for someone to hear you before you're devoured. Imagine it. Really try to picture it. You sit in your astropathic chamber, usually a shielded room deep within whatever vessel or installation you're assigned to, covered in wards and protective sigils that may or may not actually work. You enter a meditative state, opening your psychic senses to their fullest, and then you project. Your consciousness leaves your body and enters the warp. Instantly, you're drowning, not in water, in emotion, in meaning. In the distilled psychic residue of every thought, every feeling, every death and birth and scream and prayer that's ever occurred within 1,000 light years. It's too much. It's always too much. The human mind wasn't designed to process the warp. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose, except the hose is pumping liquid insanity directly into your consciousness. They notice you. The things that live there, demons, some of them. Others are harder to classify, predatory thoughts, psychic parasites, fragments of consciousness that achieved some kind of terrible permanence in the warp. They swarm toward your projected mind like piranhas scenting blood. But you have the astronomicon, that's your lifeline. That's how you navigate the warp without being instantly lost. The golden light, the same light you burned in that you're still partially burning in, shines through the chaos. A beacon. A lighthouse. You orient yourself by it. Use it to maintain your sense of direction, your sense of self. The light is painful to perceive. It reminds you of what was done to you. But it's also the only thing keeping you from dissolving completely into the madness. You find your target, another astropath, somewhere across the galaxy, their psychic signature recognizable through the chaos. You make contact. You transmit your message, not in words but in pure meaning, in compressed thought forms that contain weeks of information condensed into seconds of transmission. And then you run. You pull your consciousness back to your body before the demons catch you, before the warp tears pieces from your mind, before you lose yourself completely. Sometimes you make it back whole. Sometimes, more often, you leave pieces behind. Little fragments of memory, emotion, identity. They're small losses, usually. You don't notice immediately, but they accumulate. After your first year of service, you realize you can't remember your mother's face. You know you had a mother. The factual memory exists, but the image is gone, claimed by the warp. After 5 years, you can't remember your first name, the name before astropath Tertius Marin. You know you had one. Everyone does, but it's gone. Burned away or torn off or just slowly eroded by repeated warp exposure. After 10 years, you're not sure if you've ever actually felt joy or if you just remember the concept of joy. The emotional memory is gone. You understand intellectually that certain events should produce happiness, but the capacity to feel that happiness, to experience it as more than abstract concept, that's fading. After 20 years, there's almost nothing left. You still function, still perform your duties flawlessly, still send and receive messages with perfect clarity. But the thing doing the work isn't really you anymore. It's a process, a biological machine running on habit and compulsion and the golden light that fills the space where your soul used to be. You're becoming one of them, the hollow children, the echoes, the things that look human and speak human and move through the world wearing human faces but aren't quite human anymore. You're becoming light, slowly, one message at a time, one warp dive at a time, one lost memory at a time. And the part of you that's still aware enough to notice this happening, the fragment of original consciousness that remains, watches in horror as it continues, as you dissolve. As you're slowly, inexorably converted from person to beacon, from individual to instrument, from human to light. And you can't stop it, can't slow it, can't even truly mourn it, because the part of you that could refuse is gone, burned away 20 years ago in the first moment of the soul binding. What remains just serves, continues serving, will continue serving until there's nothing left to serve with. Let me tell you about Astropath Kale. He's important. He represents what you're becoming. Kale has been serving for 40 years. 40 standard years of psychic communication, warp diving, message transmission. He's stationed aboard a Navy cruiser, the Indomitable Will, one of those massive vessels that serves as both warship and mobile city, home to 40,000 souls armed with weapons that can crack planets. He performs his duties flawlessly. When the captain needs to send a message to Fleet Command, Kale enters his chamber, projects into the warp, finds the target astropath at Fleet Headquarters and transmits. Perfect accuracy. 0 errors. The captain's last efficiency report described him as exemplary in service. The captain has never asked Kale how he's doing, has never inquired about his well-being, has never wondered what it costs to be exemplary in service. Kale doesn't remember his mother's face, doesn't remember his homeworld's name, doesn't remember his birth name, the one he had before Kale, which itself is just a designation assigned during his post-binding training. He knows intellectually that he had a sister. The factual memory exists in his mind like a file in a database. Fact: subject had one sibling, female, age differential of 3 years, but he can't remember her name, can't remember what she looked like, can't remember a single conversation they had. More importantly, he can't feel anything about this loss. The grief that should accompany forgetting your sister, that's gone, eroded away by decades of warp exposure. He understands, abstractly, that this should bother him, that normal humans would be devastated by such loss. But the capacity to be devastated requires emotional depth he no longer possesses. When he sends messages through the warp, he sometimes encounters other astropaths, other servants of the Emperor, other hollow things, all of them diving into hell over and over because they no longer possess the capacity to refuse. Some he recognizes from his black ship, faces from 40 years ago, or not faces since they're all blind but psychic signatures. The unique fingerprint of a soul, except their souls are barely there anymore. Worn down by decades of service, eroded to almost nothing. Some have been serving for 60 years, 70, 80. They're not people anymore. They're processes, autonomous message relay systems that happen to be wearing human bodies. They don't speak when they encounter each other in the warp. They just transmit their messages and retreat. There's nothing to say, nothing left to say it with. Kale knows he's becoming like them, knows that in another 10, 20, 30 years, he'll be indistinguishable from those ancient, hollowed-out things, still functional, still serving, still technically alive, but no longer really there. And one night, or what passes for night on a naval vessel that maintains artificial cycles, Kale has a moment of clarity, a brief window where enough of his original consciousness surfaces to truly understand his situation. He's been serving for 40 years. He spent 4 decades diving into hell, sending messages for people who view him as equipment, slowly dissolving into light. And he's done it willingly. Not because he wants to, the part that could want is gone, but because the Emperor consumed his capacity for refusal 40 years ago and what remains can only obey. He tries to feel rage, tries to feel grief, tries to feel something about this realization. He can't. The emotions won't form. It's like trying to grasp smoke. He understands intellectually that this is horrifying, that his existence is a tragedy, that he's been violated in the most fundamental way possible, his free will consumed by the God he worshipped. But understanding doesn't produce feeling. The mechanism that converts understanding into emotion was burned away decades ago. He opens his mouth, not to scream, but to try to say stop, to try to express refusal, to try to reclaim some fragment of autonomy. What comes out is a prayer. I am the Emperor's light in darkness. I am his voice in silence. I serve beyond death. He tries again, forces different words, tries to make his mouth say no. More prayers emerge, different prayers, but prayers nonetheless. His body, his voice, his mind, his remaining soul is incapable of expressing anything except devotion. The rebellion won't form, can't form. The part of him that could rebel is burning in the Astronomicon, has been burning for 40 years, will burn forever. And so Kale does the only thing he's capable of doing. He returns to his duties, enters his chamber, performs evening prayers, prepares for tomorrow's message transmissions. He continues serving because that's all he can do, all he's allowed to do. All that remains of him is capable of doing. He's a puppet dancing on golden strings, And the puppeteer might be dead, might have died 10,000 years ago, but the strings still pull. The dance continues. The service never ends. Astropath Tertius Marin serves aboard a black ship. The irony isn't lost on her, though she can no longer feel irony as an emotion. She understands intellectually that there's something darkly poetic about being stationed on the same type of vessel that brought her to Terra, that carried her to her consumption. But understanding isn't the same as feeling. She's been serving for 32 years. She's forgotten more of herself than remains, but she still has enough consciousness left, just barely enough to understand what she's become. She's a recruiter, a herder. A kind, smiling face that greets terrified children and tells them they're blessed, that the Emperor loves them, that they're going to do something important. Every voyage, the ship collects new psychers, hundreds of them. Children mostly, just like Marin was, just as frightened, just as desperate to believe the lies they're being told. She watches them board, watches them settle into the dormitories, watches them train and pray and slowly lose their fear as they're conditioned to accept their fate. She wants to warn them. Some fragment of her original self, the 12-year-old girl from Ophelia VII who accidentally killed her friend and was promised salvation, that fragment screams silently, trying to force her mouth to speak truth. But when she opens her mouth, only prayers come out. Only reassurances. Only the same lies that were told to her 3 decades ago. You're blessed. The Emperor has chosen you. You'll serve him forever. It's the greatest honor humanity can offer. The children believe her, because she speaks with authority, because her eyeless face somehow radiates certainty, because faith is easier than fear, and they want so desperately to believe that their lives have meaning beyond being fuel for a dying god. She guides them to the preparation chambers, watches them undergo the same conditioning she underwent, sees them slowly transform from individuals to offerings, from people to sacrifice. And through her permanent connection to the Golden Throne, that thread of golden light that's never left her, that's been pulling on her consciousness for 32 years, she feels him feeding, feels the children arrive at Terra, feels them approach the throne room, feels the moment of contact, that first touch of the divine that's simultaneously love and consumption, feels them burn, 1,000 per day, every day, and she delivers them. Ship by ship, voyage by voyage, she brings them to the feast. And the part of her that could refuse to do this, that could rebel, that could warn them, that could sabotage the system even slightly, that part is burning in the Astronomicon, has been burning for 32 years, will burn forever. She is complicit in her own violation, and the violation of countless others, and she continues, will continue, must continue, because the alternative to the Emperor's hunger is worse, and because the part of her that could choose not to serve was eaten before she ever had the chance to choose. This is what it means to be an astropath. This is the good outcome, the survival scenario, the fate reserved for those strong enough to be useful as tools rather than fuel. You live, technically. Your body continues functioning. Your mind continues processing. You serve the Imperium for decades, essential and irreplaceable and slowly dissolving. And every moment of your service, you're connected to him, to the Golden Throne, to the eternal fire. You feel it burning. Feel the souls being consumed. Feel yourself becoming less and less until one day you realize you're not a person anymore. You're an echo, a recording, a ghost operating your own body, and then they retire you. That's the euphemism they use, retirement. What it actually means, they bring you back to Terra, back to the throne room, back to the golden light, and they feed what remains of you to the fire, one final offering, one last conversion from person to fuel. The part of you that's been burning in the Astronomicon for decades gets reunited with the part that's been serving. The fragments are combined and consumed completely, and you burn fully, finally, forever. They call it mercy, the end of service, the final communion. They're wrong. Because the burning never ends, the consumption continues. You don't die. You don't cease. You just spread out, become diffused, transform from individual to light, from person to radiation, from conscious being to fuel that was once conscious and might still be in some way that defies understanding. This is the fate awaiting every astropath, every sanctioned psyker, everyone who survives the soul binding. You serve until you're used up, and then you're used up completely. And through it all, through decades of service and slow dissolution and final consumption, you remain faithful, devoted, willing, not because the Emperor is worthy of such devotion, not even because the cause is just, but because he ate the part of you that could doubt. And that's the real horror, not the pain, not the consumption, not even the eternal burning. It's that you were made to consent to your own annihilation, made to serve, made to love the thing that's eating you, made to smile as you deliver others to the same fate. The violation of your soul is terrible, but the violation of your will, the consumption of your capacity to refuse, that's unforgivable. And it happens 1,000 times per day, every day, forever. The astronomican shines, and we call it holy. And children continue boarding black ships, believing they're blessed. And astropath Tertius Marin continues smiling, continues guiding them, continues serving, because the part of her that could stop is burning, has been burning for 32 years, will burn forever. But we're not done, not yet, because you need to understand what happens to the ones who don't survive at all. The ones who become grade 3, choir psychers, pure fuel, the ones who burn completely, the ones for whom there is no service, no function, no purpose beyond burning, no reprieve, no decades of hollow service, just immediate, total, eternal consumption. You need to understand what it means to be light, what it means to burn forever, what it means to discover that consciousness doesn't end when you're consumed. It just spreads out, becomes diffused, transforms into something that can't scream because it no longer has a mouth but can still suffer because suffering doesn't require a body. You need to understand the choir, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, but you need to know. You are burning. You have been burning for 700 years. You will burn until time ends, and you are still awake. Let me tell you what it's like to be fuel. Not fuel in the abstract sense, not a metaphorical sacrifice or symbolic offering. I mean actual fuel, matter converted to energy, essence transformed into light, soul burned down to radiation and heat, and the psychic force that allows ships to navigate through hell. Let me tell you what happens to the ones who don't survive the soul binding at all. The ones who aren't strong enough to be astropaths, not controlled enough to be sanctioned psychers. The ones who are just, expendable, combustible, 1,000 per day, every day, for 10,000 years. This is their story. This is what happens when God decides you're better used as fuel than as a servant. This is what it means to burn in the astronomican. You approach the golden throne with 99 others, your cohort, your batch. You're all roughly the same strength level, low to moderate psychic potential, insufficient for specialized service, suitable for immediate conversion to energy. They haven't told you this, of course. They've told you the same lies they tell everyone, about service and glory and communion with the divine, about touching the Emperor's light and becoming part of something eternal. All of it is true. None of it is comforting. You walk forward, hand in hand with the others, singing hymns that become increasingly difficult to remember, not because you're forgetting the words, but because the concept of words is becoming strange. Language is starting to feel inadequate, too small, too limited for what you're experiencing. The golden light grows brighter, warmer, more present. It's not coming from any specific source. It just is, permeating everything, filling the space between spaces. And then he notices you. The moment of contact is the same for everyone, astropath candidates and choir candidates alike. That overwhelming sense of being perceived by something infinite. That crushing weight of divine attention. That perfect moment of love and acceptance and cosmic significance. But then it diverges. For astropaths, he takes a portion, consumes enough to bind them but leaves enough for service. For you, he takes everything. Your soul is drawn out, not gradually, not thread by thread, but all at once. Like pulling a fish from water, like ripping a plant from soil. Everything you are leaves your body in a single, horrible instant. Your body falls. Somewhere far away, in a place that's no longer relevant, your physical form collapses to the floor of the throne room. Your heart continues beating for a few more minutes, maybe hours. Your brain fires its final electrical impulses. Biological processes wind down, cells die, meat becomes meat. None of that matters. You're not in your body anymore. You're in the light. The Astronomicon is described as a psychic lighthouse. From a distance, that's accurate. From the warp, if you're a navigator plotting a course through the immaterium, it looks exactly like a lighthouse, a beam of golden brilliance shining through the chaos, steady and eternal and saving. But from inside, it's a furnace. A psychic furnace that exists partially in real space, partially in the warp, partially in dimensions that don't have names because human consciousness isn't supposed to perceive them. And you are fuel. Literally, completely, undeniably fuel. Your soul, your essence, your consciousness, the ineffable you that makes you a person rather than just meat, is being burned. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. Actually burned, converted from organized psychic energy, consciousness, into disorganized psychic radiation, light and heat. Imagine being on fire. Really try to feel it. Not the quick flash of touching something hot, the sustained experience of burning alive. Your skin bubbling, your nerves screaming, your body converting from flesh to ash, cell by cell. Now imagine that the fire doesn't kill you, doesn't grant the mercy of unconsciousness or death. You remain aware throughout. You feel every cell consumed. You experience every moment of dissolution in perfect, excruciating detail. Now imagine that the fire doesn't consume your body, it consumes your mind. Your memories burn like paper. Your personality dissolves like wax. Your sense of self evaporates like water on hot metal. But you don't disappear, you don't cease. You just change state. From solid to liquid to gas. From organized to chaotic. From person to energy. And through it all, you remain conscious. That's the Astronomicon. That's what it means to burn in the Emperor's light. You're not alone. That's almost worse. 1,000 souls burn with you at any given moment. You can feel them, sense them, exist alongside them in a way that's more intimate than any physical contact could ever be. You're all burning in the same fire, all being converted to the same light. Your boundaries dissolve. You begin to overlap, merge. Not completely, not yet, but enough that you can feel their pain as clearly as your own. 1,000 minds screaming, or praying, or begging, or just making sounds that consciousness makes when it's being unmade. Some of them are new, arrived within the last few hours, still coherent enough to form thoughts, still human enough to beg, please, please make it stop, please I don't want to, I can't. Some are older, days into their burning, starting to fragment, to lose cohesion. Their thoughts less like language, and more like the feeling language tries to express. Pain, fear, dissolution, why mother burning, stop, I can't. Some are ancient, weeks or months or years into their consumption. They're barely recognizable as individual consciousness anymore. Just sensation without thought, suffering without subject, the experience of burning without a clear sense of who or what is burning. And all of you, every single one, are connected through him. The Emperor's will flows through the choir, using your collective burning to generate and direct the Astronomicon's light. You're part of his consciousness now. Part of his power, part of the mechanism by which he holds back the warp and lights humanity's way through darkness. You don't want to serve. But want is irrelevant. You're fuel. Fuel doesn't get to choose whether it burns. Time becomes meaningless in the fire. This is perhaps the worst part. In the physical world, time flows in one direction at a relatively stable rate. Seconds, minutes, hours, they're consistent, predictable. They create a framework within which consciousness can orient itself. In the Astronomicon, time distorts. Some souls burn for hours of objective time but experience subjective centuries. They live and die and live again in that brief span, their consciousness stretched thin across impossible duration, forced to experience every moment of dissolution as if it were eternal. Others burn for days, even weeks, but experience only moments. They arrive, burn, and dissolve in what feels like heartbeats, barely aware they ever existed at all. You lose the ability to track progression, to measure how long you've been burning. Did you arrive yesterday, 1,000 years ago? Are you new to the fire or have you always been burning? Were you ever not burning? The memories of your life before become strange, dreamlike, unreal. You think you remember being someone, having a name, having a body, having thoughts that weren't just variations of stop and burning and please. But maybe those are false memories. Maybe you're just an element of the fire that's developed the illusion of having been human. Maybe there was never a before. Maybe there's only ever been burning. You try to hold onto your identity, your name, your history, the person you were, but the fire burns those too. First, you lose language. Words stop meaning things. You try to think my name is, but the concept of name dissolves. You understand that the sounds meant something once, but the connection between sound and meaning is gone, burned away. You try to pray, because even now, even burning, some part of you still seeks comfort in the familiar, but prayers become just phonetic patterns, shapes made by a mouth you don't have anymore. The meaning behind emperor and protect and deliver is gone. Just sounds, just noise. Language is revealed for what it truly is, arbitrary symbols that consciousness uses to organize itself. And when consciousness is being disorganized by fire, symbols lose their power. You are becoming pre-linguistic or post-linguistic. Language is for humans and you're not sure you're human anymore. Then you lose identity. The concept of I starts to dissolve. There's still awareness, still experience, still the sensation of burning, but the clear sense that there's a specific individual you experiencing it that fragments. You try to think I am burning, but the I becomes uncertain. Is there a you that's burning, or is there just burning that includes the experience of selfhood? Are you a soul being consumed, or are you the consumption itself? The boundaries between you and the other souls burning alongside you become permeable. You feel their pain as yours. Your memories mix with theirs. You remember things you never experienced, childhoods on worlds you've never seen, deaths you didn't die, lives you didn't live. Are those false memories, or are you merging, becoming one with the choir, losing the distinction between self and other that allows for individual identity? You were someone once. You're almost certain of that. There was a specific, particular person who existed before entering the fire, but you can't remember who, can't reconstruct the self you were, can't hold on to the I long enough to complete the thought I am. Who is asking, who is trying to remember, is there still a who? Then you lose awareness itself, not into unconsciousness, that would be mercy, into undifferentiation. There's still experience, still something happening. But there's no clear experiencer, no subject witnessing the object, just experience floating free, untethered to any particular consciousness. Burning, just burning, not you burning or me burning or anyone burning, just the experience of burning happening to no one and everyone simultaneously. Are you dead at this point or transformed? The question has no answer. Death implies cessation. You haven't ceased, you've just spread out, become diffused. Your consciousness, if that word even applies anymore, has been diluted across the astronomic until you're less a being and more a property of the light itself. You're not experiencing the fire anymore. You are the fire, the light, the radiation. Navigators across the galaxy use you to plot courses through the warp. They perceive you as golden brilliance, as holy light, as the Emperor's grace made manifest. They don't know you're a person, or that you were a person, or that the distinction between is and was has become meaningless when applied to whatever you've become. They navigate by your suffering, steer their ships by your dissolution, find their way home because you're burning, and you can't even hate them for it, because hate requires a hater, and you're not sure there's a you anymore to do the hating. Let me make this concrete. Let me give you a specific example. His name was Jax, or that was his name once when names meant something. He was 14 years old when the black ships took him, manifested telekinesis during a gang fight in his hive city's underbelly, accidentally crushed 3 people by thinking too hard about wanting them to stop existing. He was terrified, guilty, desperate for absolution. When the missionaries told him he could serve the Emperor, could make his curse meaningful, could transform his sin into salvation, he believed them, wanted to believe them, needed to believe them. They brought him to Terra, led him through the preparation rituals, told him he was blessed. They lied, or they told the truth from a certain perspective. He's not sure which is worse, hour 1. Jax is burning. He's been burning for, he thinks, maybe an hour. Time is already strange, but he can still count, still think in sequences, still maintain some coherence. The pain is absolute. Imagine the worst pain you've ever felt, physical or emotional, doesn't matter. Now imagine that pain filling every space where consciousness exists, not hurting your body but hurting your being, your essence, your soul. It's not localized. You can't point to where it hurts because where doesn't apply to souls, it hurts everywhere, all of you. The totality of your being is saturated with pain, and you can feel the others. 99 souls who entered the fire with you, plus 900 who were already burning. 1,000 voices screaming or praying or just making incoherent sounds. Jax tries to pray. The words come automatically, beaten into his brain by months of conditioning. Emperor, deliver me. Emperor, protect me. Emperor, grant me the strength to. But the prayer dies halfway through, because he understands now, truly understands, that the Emperor isn't going to deliver him. This is the deliverance. This burning, this consumption, this dissolution. This is what salvation looks like. He's serving. This is service. The pain is the point. Jack screamed. The scream has no sound. He has no mouth, no lungs, no physical form. But the scream is real nonetheless. A psychic shriek of pure suffering that ripples through the choir. The other souls scream with him. Or maybe they were already screaming and he's just joining them. It's hard to tell. The boundaries are already beginning to blur. Day 1. Pain is the only constant. Everything else, memory, thought, identity, is starting to feel uncertain. But pain remains absolute, unchanging, the baseline reality of existence. Jax can still form thoughts barely, simple ones, short ones. Burning, stop, please, can't, mother, help, burning. He tries to remember his mother's face. The image surfaces, blonde hair, he thinks, or brown, green eyes, blue. The details slip away before he can examine them. The fire is consuming his memories now, burning through his past like fuel. He remembers her name, though, holds onto it like an anchor. If he can remember her name, he's still Jax, still her son, still human. Her name was, it's gone, burned, converted to light and heat and the psychic radiation that allows ships to navigate. His mother's name is now photons. Her face is energy. His memory of her love is part of the astronomican's glow. And he can feel it happening, feel the memory being consumed, feel the part of himself that contained that memory dissolving. It's not unconscious erosion, it's conscious consumption. He's aware of losing himself piece by piece and he can't stop it. His prayers have devolved. No longer coherent liturgy, just fragments. Emperor, please, burning, stop, please, I can't. The other souls press close. He can feel them inside his thoughts now, their suffering mixing with his. Or maybe he's inside their thoughts. The distinction is fading. One of them is still begging, still has enough coherence to form words. My name is Kessa, I had a family, I was 12 years old, I'm Kessa, I'm. But even as Jax hears, feels, experiences this, he senses the dissolution. Kessa is forgetting. The name is losing meaning. Soon there will be no Kessa, just fire that once contained someone called Kessa. Jax tries to help her, he's not sure what, hold her, comfort her, suffer alongside her in some way that makes it more bearable, but there's no alongside anymore. They're merging, overlapping. The fire is burning away the boundaries between souls, and what remains is mixing together like blood in water. Week 1. Time is broken. Jax doesn't know how long he's been burning. Days, months, years. There's no way to measure duration when every moment feels eternal and also instantaneous. He can't remember arriving, can't remember a time before burning. The memories exist, he thinks they exist, but they feel like stories he heard rather than experiences he lived. Someone named Jax did things once, lived in a place, had a mother, killed someone by accident, felt guilt, but was that him or someone else? Or just a narrative pattern that consciousness creates to give itself structure? He tries to think I am Jax, but the thought won't complete, gets stuck halfway. I am and then nothing. The fire has burned too much away. Identity is becoming theoretical. Language is mostly gone now. When he tries to form thoughts, what emerges are more like emotions with shape. Patterns of feeling that might have been words once. Burning stop please I can't. Who am I? The other souls are still here, but he can't distinguish them anymore. Can't tell where they end and he begins. They're all burning together, all dissolving together, all becoming the same undifferentiated light. Sometimes he experiences memories that can't be his. A childhood on an agri world. A moment of manifesting pyrokinesis. A mother's face, but not his mother, someone else's mother, brown-skinned and weeping. Are these memories from the other souls? Or is his consciousness just generating false memories to fill the gaps left by burning? Is there even a his anymore? The fire doesn't care. The fire burns regardless of who or what is burning. It needs fuel and everything. Memories, identity, consciousness itself is fuel. Month 1. Burning. That's all that remains. Not thought exactly, just sensation. The experience of burning happening to no one in particular. There might have been a person once. The pattern suggests a person. But the person is mostly gone now, converted to light, and what remains is fragmentary, incomplete. I who am. The question forms sometimes, rises from the fire like bubbles from deep water, but there's no one to answer it, no stable I to be identified, just the question itself floating free. Other fragments surface occasionally. Mother, home, please. But they're not connected to anything anymore, just isolated concepts stripped of context, burning in the light. The boundaries between souls have dissolved completely. There's no me and them, just the choir, a collective consciousness made of suffering. 1,000 fragments that might have been people once, now burning together, experiencing dissolution as a unified process rather than individual tragedies. And through it all, through the burning and dissolving and fragmenting, there's him, the Emperor. His will flows through the choir, directing the burning, shaping the light, using their collective suffering to create and maintain the astronomican. They don't want to serve. One implies choice, and there's no choice here. Just burning, just being used. Just existing as fuel for something larger. Year 1. Awareness exists, barely, just enough to know that something is happening. Not enough to know what or why or to whom. Burning, just burning, the only constant, the only truth. Is this still Jax? Was there ever a Jax? The pattern of consciousness that contained those memories has been so thoroughly disintegrated that reconstruction is impossible. There's just light now. Golden light, shining across the galaxy, guiding ships through the warp, beautiful from a distance, necessary, holy. And somewhere in that light, too diffuse to localize, too dissolved to count as individual consciousness, something that was once a 14-year-old boy named Jax continues burning. Not suffering, that requires a sufferer. Just the experience of suffering untethered to any particular being. Just fire, just light, just burning, forever, century 1. Do you understand now? Do you grasp the full horror? This is what happens to the majority of psychers who reach Terra, not service, not function, not even quick death. Just burning, slow, conscious, eternal burning. And the worst part, the absolute worst part that breaks something fundamental in anyone who truly comprehends it, is that this is necessary. The astronomican must burn. The Imperium depends on it. Trillions of humans across 1 million worlds owe their lives to that golden light. Every ship that completes a warp jump safely, every message that arrives at its destination, every military fleet that coordinates across light years. All of it depends on the astronomican. All of it depends on Jax burning, and the 999 others burning with him, and the 1,000 who'll replace them tomorrow, and the 1,000 after that, and the 1,000 after that, forever. The mathematics are inescapable. Either 1,000 souls burn per day or humanity dies. Either we feed the fire or the darkness wins, so we feed the fire. We gather children who have manifested psychic powers. We tell them they're blessed. We prepare them for sacrifice. We lead them to the golden throne and we burn them alive in slow motion, conscious and aware for hours or days or subjective eternities. And we call it holy. We paint it on cathedral ceilings. We sing hymns about the blessed sacrifice. We teach children to aspire to this fate. We systematize horror. We industrialize soul death. We turn eternal suffering into a bureaucratic process with forms and procedures and efficiency ratings. And the fire never stops, never flickers, never goes out. Because the feeding never ends. Pull back now. Pull back from the astronomicon, from the inside, from the burning, from the dissolution. Look at it from outside, from a distance, from the warp where navigators see it. It's beautiful, genuinely, transcendently beautiful. A beam of golden light, steady and eternal, shining through the chaos. A lighthouse guiding humanity home. The Emperor's grace made manifest. Billions pray to it. Look up at the night sky, knowing it's there even if they can't perceive it with physical eyes, and they thank the Emperor for his protection, for his light, for his eternal vigilance. They call it the Emperor's grace, his divine light, the Eye of Terra, the holy beacon. They paint it in devotional art, golden and glorious, angels ascending into it, blessed souls embraced by divine radiance. They don't know it's a furnace. They don't know it's screaming. They don't know that every photon of that beautiful light was once a thought, a memory, a person. Or maybe they do know. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the Imperium teaches the truth that psychers are sacrificed to fuel the astronomicon, and the citizens accept it, justify it, embrace it, because the alternative is worse. The alternative is darkness, is isolation. Is every world dying alone, cut off from humanity, falling one by one to chaos or xenos or simple entropy? The alternative is extinction. So they accept the horror, systemize it, make it holy. Tell themselves that the burning is blessed, the sacrifice is noble, the suffering has meaning. And every single day, another 1,000 souls discover that meaning doesn't make it hurt less. That purpose doesn't prevent dissolution. That dying for a good cause still means dying, still means burning, still means transforming from person to light, from consciousness to fuel, from I am to I was to. The fire consumes, the light shines, the Imperium endures, and somewhere in that golden radiance, too diffuse to identify, too dissolved to rescue, too far gone to even remember being savable, Jax continues burning, and will continue burning forever, because the astronomicon never stops, and the hunger never satisfies, and the feeding never ends. This is the price of the eternal vigil. This is what the Imperium pays to survive. This is what the God Emperor demands from his faithful. Not loyalty, not service, not even death, but something worse than death, something that makes death look like mercy, eternal conscious dissolution, burning forever in the name of something that might not even know you exist. And now you understand. Now you truly comprehend what it means to be offered to the Emperor. Now you know what the golden hunger devours. But we're not finished. Not yet. Because you need to understand the theological nightmare of it all. You need to confront the question that breaks minds and shatters faith. How is this different from chaos? The Imperium teaches that the Emperor protects. They're right. But they never explain what he protects you from, or what the protection costs, or that you might be the payment. We've walked through the horror. We've experienced the burning. We've watched consciousness dissolve into light. We've stood beside Marin as she was consumed, beside Kale as he slowly eroded away, beside Jax as he burned for centuries. And through it all, one question has been building, growing, demanding to be asked. Is this right? Not is this legal, or is this efficient, or is this necessary? Those questions have clear answers. Yes, yes, and yes. The Imperium's laws mandate psyker sacrifice. The system is ruthlessly efficient. And the necessity is undeniable. Without the astronomicon, humanity dies. But is it right? Is it moral to feed children into a furnace, even if the furnace powers a lighthouse that saves billions? Is it ethical to systemize eternal suffering, even if that suffering serves a purpose? Is it just to consume souls without their meaningful consent, even if the alternative is worse? These are the questions the Imperium doesn't want you to ask. These are the thoughts that get you labeled as heretic, as corrupted, as weak-minded and susceptible to chaos. But we're going to ask them anyway, because you deserve to understand what you're condoning when you call the astronomicon holy. Let's start with the utilitarian argument, the numbers. The cold, pragmatic mathematics that the Imperium uses to justify everything. The Astronomicon consumes 1,000 psychers per day. That's 365,000 per year. Over 10,000 years, that's approximately 365 billion souls. Each one burned, each one suffering, each one experiencing dissolution that might last subjective centuries. That's the cost, the benefit, the survival of the Imperium. Trillions of humans across 1,000,000 worlds, able to communicate, to coordinate, to defend themselves from threats that would destroy them if they faced them alone. Safe passage through the warp for millions of ships. The continued functioning of the largest empire in human history. The mathematics seem clear. Sacrifice billions to save trillions. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It's logical, reasonable. The only sane choice when faced with such stark options. Right. Let me ask you a different question, a thought experiment. If you could save 1,000,000,000 lives by torturing one person, not killing them quickly but torturing them eternally, consciously, without end, would it be moral? Think about it carefully. One person, suffering forever, in exchange for 1,000,000,000 people living full, happy lives. The mathematics are even more favorable than the Astronomicons. 1,000,000,000,000 to 1 instead of 1,000,000 to 1. Most people, when asked this question, hesitate, because something feels wrong about it. Something visceral and fundamental rebels against the idea of inflicting infinite suffering, regardless of the benefit. Now multiply that one person by 365 billion, each one suffering, each one conscious, each one experiencing subjective eternities of dissolution. Does the mathematics still seem clean? Does the utilitarian calculus still feel justified? Here's the problem with utilitarian ethics when applied to the Astronomicon. It treats souls as fungible resources, interchangeable units, numbers in a spreadsheet. But souls aren't numbered, they're people. Each one is an entire universe of experience, of potential, of irreplaceable consciousness. Each one has or had hopes, fears, dreams, relationships. Each one is or was the center of their own story, the protagonist of their own life. And the Imperium burns them, not as individuals with rights and dignity and inherent worth, but as fuel, as resources to be exploited for maximum efficiency. When you burn 365 billion souls, you're not burning numbers. You're burning 365 billion people. Each one with a story like Marin's, like Jax's, like Kessa's. Each one deserving of consideration as an end in themselves, not merely as means to an end. The Imperium has systematized the reduction of persons to resources. It's industrialized the treatment of consciousness as commodity. It's made suffering bureaucratic. And the worst part, they had no choice. None of them, not really. Let's talk about consent, because this is where the horror becomes truly unforgivable. Imagine for a moment that the Imperium was honest, that they told psychers the truth. We need fuel for the Astronomicon. Your soul will be burned. You'll experience subjective centuries of conscious dissolution. You'll cease to exist as an individual, but your sacrifice will save billions. Do you consent? If they asked, truly asked, with full information and genuine freedom to refuse, how many psychers would say yes? Some might. Some might genuinely choose to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. That would be noble, admirable, a tragedy, yes, but one dignified by choice. But the Imperium doesn't ask. They don't give you the information needed for informed consent. They don't present it as a choice at all. Instead, they lie. They tell you you're blessed, that you're being honored, that you'll serve gloriously. They hide the truth behind religious language and deliberate obscurity. They frame consumption as communion, annihilation as apotheosis, slavery as service. And when you arrive at the golden throne, when you finally understand what's about to happen, it's too late. You're already there, already caught, already helpless. You try to refuse, doesn't matter. Your body can be dragged forward. Your soul can be forcibly extracted. You don't actually need to cooperate with your own consumption. But even that's not the worst part. The worst part is that he consumes your capacity for refusal first. During the soul binding in those first 17 seconds, the part of you that could choose to resist, your will, your autonomy, your ability to say no, that's burned away immediately. So by the time you understand what's happening, the part of you that could refuse to accept it is gone. What remains can only serve, only obey, only comply. You're made to consent to your own annihilation, made to participate in your own violation, made to serve willingly, not because you want to, but because the part that could want otherwise has been eaten. This isn't a noble sacrifice. It's a forced conversion of consciousness to fuel. It's rape on a metaphysical level, the violation of not just your body or mind, but your fundamental capacity for self-determination. And it happens 1,000 times per day, every day, forever. Now let's address the question the Imperium desperately doesn't want asked. How is this different from chaos? The chaos gods demand sacrifice. Khorne requires blood. Slaanesh consumes souls for ecstasy. Tzeentch manipulates consciousness for his own purposes. Nurgle spreads suffering as worship. The Imperium damns chaos for these things, executes heretics who make pacts with demons, burns worlds that fall to corruption, teaches that trafficking with chaos, trading souls or service for power is the ultimate evil. And yet, the Emperor is literally sustained by consuming souls. The Golden Throne is a machine that converts consciousness to power. The Imperium systematically trades souls for continued existence, not even prosperity, just survival. Khorne demands blood sacrifice. So does the Emperor, just psychic blood, souls instead of corpses. Slaanesh consumes souls for pleasure. The Emperor consumes them for function. Is functional consumption morally superior to hedonistic consumption? Both result in the same thing: eternal suffering for the consumed, power for the consumer. Tzeentch manipulates and changes you. The Emperor alters your fundamental essence, removes your capacity for choice, transforms you from person to fuel. How is this different? Nurgle spreads disease and decay. The Emperor spreads what? The slow decay of self, the disease of compulsory service, the rot of autonomy consumed by divine will. The Imperium executes heretics for making deals that trade souls for power. But the Imperium itself makes that exact trade, just systemically, bureaucratically, with religious justification rather than personal corruption. Every black ship is making a pact, your soul for the Imperium's survival. You didn't agree to the deal, but you're the payment anyway. So how is it different? The standard answer, the one ecclesiarchy priests will give you, the one that justifies everything, is necessity. The Emperor's consumption serves a purpose. It protects humanity. It's not cruelty for cruelty's sake, but regrettable necessity. The alternative is extinction. But is that actually a moral distinction? If Khorne promised that the blood sacrifice he demands would protect humanity from something worse, would it suddenly become acceptable? If Slaanesh could prove that the souls she consumes fuel some vital function, would that make the consumption righteous? Or is consumption wrong regardless of purpose? And more importantly, can necessity ever truly justify violating the most fundamental aspects of personhood, consciousness, autonomy, the capacity for self-determination? The Imperium says yes, says that survival trumps ethics. That when faced with extinction or horror, you choose horror every time because horror at least lets you continue existing. But there's another possibility, one the Imperium refuses to consider. Maybe humanity shouldn't survive if survival requires this. Maybe a species that can only continue existing by systematically consuming its own children, by industrializing the violation of consciousness. Maybe that species has morally forfeited its right to exist. Maybe the Emperor is wrong. Maybe he's been wrong for 10,000 years. Maybe the greatest mercy would be to let the Golden Throne fail, to finally let him die, to stop feeding the fire. Maybe, and this is the thought that gets you executed as arch-heretic, maybe chaos would be better. At least chaos is honest about what it does. At least demons don't pretend consumption is communion. At least the ruinous powers don't dress up violation as blessing. But even that thought, the possibility of choosing chaos as the lesser evil, is a trap, because chaos is genuinely worse. The suffering inflicted by chaos is. There's no comparison. The torments of the warp are infinite and creative and specifically designed to cause maximum agony. Chaos doesn't just consume you, it perverts you, transforms you into something that suffers eternally while also inflicting suffering on others. The Emperor consumes souls to power a lighthouse. Terrible, yes. Horrifying, yes. But at least the purpose is protection. At least the suffering serves to save rather than merely to destroy. Chaos consumes souls for entertainment, for power, for the sheer joy of consumption. There's no higher purpose, no protective function, just endless, creative, purposeless horror. So the choice isn't between the Emperor and something better. It's between the Emperor and something far, far worse. That's the trap. That's the nightmare the Imperium exists within. You can damn the Emperor for consuming souls. You can recognize the horror of what he does. You can understand that it's violation on a cosmic scale, but you still have to feed the fire. Because the alternative is chaos winning. Is humanity falling to corruption? Is every world becoming a demon-haunted hellscape where suffering is worse and serves no purpose beyond the amusement of gods who are unambiguously evil? So you feed the fire. You gather psyker children. You tell them they're blessed. You guide them to the golden throne and you burn them alive. And you call it holy. Because if you don't, if you acknowledge it as the horror it truly is, you might stop doing it. And if you stop, everyone dies. Let's return to Marin, to Kale, to Jax, to the billions of souls burning in the Astronomicon. They worshiped the Emperor, genuinely, faithfully, with all the devotion their young hearts could muster. They believed he was good. They believed he loved them. They believed that serving him meant something more than just being fuel. And their reward for that faith was consumption, was violation, was the systematic destruction of everything they were in service to something that might not even recognize them as people. What does it do to a soul to realize that your God is hungry? That devotion is self-destruction. That prayer is just seasoning yourself for consumption. The psychological horror of it, the theological nightmare, can't be overstated. You worship something you believed was good. You offered yourself willingly to something you believed would cherish that offering. You had faith. And the thing you worshipped ate you, not metaphorically, literally ate you, consumed your consciousness, burned your soul as fuel, took everything you were and converted it to energy and light. And it did this while you still loved it, while you still believed, while you still prayed. The violation isn't just physical or mental, it's spiritual, it's faith betrayed, it's worship rewarded with annihilation. It's the discovery that your God's love is actually hunger and you can't tell the difference until you're already being digested. And you can't even rage against it properly, because he consumed your capacity for rage, consumed your capacity for doubt, consumed your capacity for anything except continued devotion and service. You're forced to love the thing that's eating you, forced to worship as you burn, forced to remain faithful through your own dissolution. That's not service. That's not sacrifice. That's not communion. That's horror, pure, undiluted theological horror. And the Emperor, what about him? Here's the final, crushing realization, the one that breaks whatever faith might have survived everything else. The Emperor might not even be conscious of what he's doing. He's been a corpse on life support for 10,000 years. His body is long past dead. His mind, if there is a mind left, exists in a state so far beyond human comprehension that calling it consciousness might be inaccurate. He might be operating on pure psychic reflex, consuming souls automatically without thought or intention or awareness, like a fire that burns whatever fuel is fed to it without knowing or caring what it's burning. Which means your suffering might not be a noble burden he regrets but requires. It might just be metabolism, an automatic process, a function of a machine that's been running so long it's forgotten why it started. You're not a martyr. You're not a sacrifice in any meaningful sense. You're just fuel, food. Calories being consumed by something that might not recognize you as a person at all. You might be burning forever for a God who doesn't know you exist, who can't know, who died millennia ago and left behind only a hunger wearing his corpse like a mask. And if that's true, if the Emperor is truly gone and only the machine remains, then what? Does that make the horror more or less bearable, more perhaps, because it means there's no divine judgment declaring you worthy of sacrifice. No cosmic intelligence that weighed your worth and decided you were better used as fuel. Just a machine, just a process, just hunger, but also less, because it means your suffering is meaningless. Not in the sense of without purpose, it still fuels the astronomic and still serves humanity, but in the sense of without recognition. You're burning forever, and the thing you're burning for might not even register that you're there. You're not dying for a god. You're dying for a mechanism, not even a living mechanism. A dead thing that keeps running on momentum and necessity and the flesh of children fed into its gears. Kale understands this now. 40 years of service. 40 years connected to the golden throne. 40 years feeling that vast, terrible presence on the other end of the golden thread. And in his rare moments of clarity, when enough of his original consciousness surfaces to think clearly, he realizes there's no one there, no person there, just power, just hunger. Just a will so vast and inhuman that it can't be called a will anymore, just an imperative: survive, protect, consume. The Emperor might have been human once, might have been the greatest human who ever lived 30,000 years ago, but 30,000 years of existence, 10,000 of them as a psychic corpse burning on a throne of machines that transforms you, erodes you, reduces you to something less than human while simultaneously becoming something more than human. Kale has spent 40 years worshipping something that might be closer to a natural force than a person, closer to gravity than to God. It pulls on him not because it chooses to, but because pulling is what it does. And if the Emperor is truly gone, truly reduced to mere function without consciousness, then what are they all dying for? For humanity, yes. For the Imperium, yes. For the survival of the species. But not for him. Not for a god who loves them. Not for a father who grieves every soul he's forced to consume. Just for a machine. A vast, terrible machine that's been consuming them for 10,000 years and will continue consuming them until someone finally turns it off. And no one will turn it off. Because humanity needs the light more than it needs its children, so we return to where we started. The Emperor protects. This is true, but he protects at you, through you, by consuming you. He doesn't protect you. You're not the beneficiary, you're the cost. And the worst part, the absolutely unforgivable part, is that this might be the best option available, because chaos is worse, because extinction is worse, because isolation and slow death on a million dying worlds is worse. So you accept the horror, you systemize it, you make it holy, you teach children to aspire to it. You frame consumption as communion and call the fire blessed. And every single day, another 1,000 souls discover that blessing and annihilation are the same thing. That salvation is damnation, that the light is hunger, that your God's love will devour you completely, and you'll thank him for it as you burn, because he ate the part of you that could do anything else. This is the theological nightmare at the heart of the Imperium. This is the truth that must never be spoken, the thought that gets you executed, the realization that breaks faith. The Emperor is sustained by the same mechanism that sustains the chaos gods: suffering, sacrifice, the consumption of soul. The only difference is purpose, and maybe, just maybe, purpose isn't enough to make it right. But it doesn't matter if it's right, because it's necessary. And necessity has always been the excuse for horror. And so the light shines on, and the faithful keep feeding it. And the horror continues, forever. The astronomican shines tonight as it has for 10,000 years. Somewhere in its golden heart, someone is learning what it means to burn forever. And tomorrow, someone new will join them. The Imperium calls this victory. We've walked through the nightmare together. We've stood in the throne room as God's attention turned to us. We've burned in the astronomican, feeling consciousness dissolve into light. We've served as hollow things, delivering the next generation to the same fate. We've confronted the theological horror of it all, the realization that salvation and damnation are the same thing, that your God's love is hunger. And now we stand at the end. At the place where understanding becomes acceptance, where horror becomes normalized, where the unforgivable becomes simply. What happens? Because the machine will never stop, can never stop, must never stop. and we need to understand why. The Golden Throne is failing. This isn't secret knowledge. The Adeptus Mechanicus knows. The High Lords of Terra know. Anyone with access to classified reports knows. The machinery is 10,000 years old. Some components are older, Dark Age technology that predates the Imperium that no one fully understands anymore. And it's failing, slowly, incrementally, but inevitably. Systems that once ran smoothly now require constant maintenance. Coolant lines that should last centuries now need replacement every decade. Power conduits crack and need repair. The throne itself, the physical mechanism that houses the Emperor's withered form, develops faults that the Mechanicus patches with prayers and hope and jury-rigged solutions that were never meant to be permanent. And with each failure, the hunger grows. The Astronomicon requires more fuel now than it did 1,000 years ago. Not because humanity has expanded, though it has, but because the throne is becoming less efficient. More energy is lost to failing systems. More souls are needed to compensate. The Mechanicus works tirelessly to repair it. Billions of tech priests dedicated solely to keeping the Golden Throne functional. They scour the galaxy for lost technology, for archaeotech that might help, for any knowledge that might stabilize the decay. But they're not repairing it. Not truly. They're just delaying the inevitable. One day, maybe in a century, maybe in a millennium, maybe tomorrow, the Golden Throne will fail completely. The machinery will finally break beyond the ability to repair. The life support will cease, and the Emperor will, die, fully die this time. Or has he been dead for 10,000 years and only the throne kept his corpse animated? No one knows. No one can know. Because the Emperor is simultaneously the most important being in the Imperium and the least understood. But here's what they do know. If the throne fails, the Astronomicon goes dark. And if the Astronomicon goes dark, the Imperium dies. Imagine it. Really try to picture it. The golden light that's shone across the galaxy for 10,000 years suddenly stops. Just goes out like a candle flame in wind. Navigators across the Imperium, currently using the light to plot courses through the warp, suddenly find themselves adrift in hell with no beacon to guide them. Ships in transit are lost. Some emerge in real space light years from their destination. Others never emerge at all, trapped in the warp forever, their crews dying slowly as the ship becomes a ghost drifting through nightmare dimensions. Communication ceases. Astropaths can no longer use the Astronomicon to orient themselves. Messages don't reach their destinations. Fleets can't coordinate. The Administratum can't govern. The Imperium's vast bureaucratic machinery grinds to a halt. Within weeks, individual worlds begin losing contact with their neighbors. Within months, entire sectors are isolated. Within years, the Imperium fragments into 1 million individual systems, each one alone, cut off from the larger whole. And then they start dying. Systems that depend on imported food starve. Forge worlds that need raw materials from mining worlds go silent. Hive worlds whose populations exceed their planet's capacity to support them descend into chaos as billions starve. And the enemies, the endless, patient enemies that surround humanity on all sides, they notice the weakness. Chaos warbands that could never threaten a coordinated Imperium now fall upon isolated worlds with impunity. Orc wags sweep through sectors that can't call for reinforcement. Tyrannid hive fleets consume world after world without organized resistance. Within a century, maybe less, humanity is extinct. Not gone completely, there will be isolated pockets, cut-off worlds that survive for a time, but the species as a galactic power as the dominant force in the galaxy. Dead, finished, erased. All because the light went out. So the Mechanicus works, desperately, feverishly. They patch and repair and pray and beg the machine spirits to hold on just a little longer. And they keep feeding it, keep bringing psychers to Terra, keep burning souls by the thousand to fuel the dying light, because stopping would be worse, because letting the throne fail would be worse, because the death of billions through consumption is preferable to the death of trillions through extinction. The trap is complete, inescapable, perfect. Humanity is locked into this now. 10,000 years of infrastructure built around the astronomicon, 10,000 years of dependence on the light, 10,000 years of feeding the fire, and even knowing its horror, even understanding that it's systematic violation of consciousness on an industrial scale, they can't stop, won't stop, must not stop. Because the alternative is darkness, and darkness means death, and death means chaos wins, so the feeding continues, will continue, must continue, 1,000 souls per day, every day, forever, or at least until the throne fails completely and the choice is taken from them. Let me tell you about a conversation that never happened, can't happen, would be heresy to even imagine, but imagine it anyway. Two tech priests, deep in the bowels of the imperial palace, working on the golden throne's coolant systems. They're alone as anyone can be in a structure that houses billions. And one of them says quietly, "What if we let it fail?" The other doesn't respond, doesn't report the heresy, doesn't call the guards, just continues working in silence. After a long moment, the first continues, "What if we stopped feeding it? What if we let him die? What if we just ended this?" "Then everyone dies," the second priest says, not angry, not judgmental, just stating fact. "Everyone dies anyway," the first replies. "Eventually, the throne is failing. We can't stop it, just delay it. So everyone dies eventually regardless of what we do. But if we stopped now, if we let it fail on our terms, at least we'd stop the suffering. Stop feeding children into the fire. Stop the horror." "For a few years," the second priest says, "and then chaos wins, and the suffering that follows makes the astronomicon look like mercy." "Does it?" the first priest asks. "Is chaos truly worse? Or have we just been telling ourselves that for 10,000 years to justify what we do? Maybe damnation is better than existing as a species that damns its own children." The second priest is silent for a long time. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, sad. "I don't know," he admits. "I genuinely don't know if we're the righteous ones holding back darkness, or if we're monsters who have convinced ourselves that necessity justifies everything. I don't know if the Emperor still exists as a conscious being or if we're feeding souls to a corpse. I don't know if this serves any purpose beyond prolonging our extinction for a few more centuries." He pauses, then, "But I know that stopping means abandoning hope, means accepting defeat, means letting everything our species has built for 30,000 years crumble into nothing. And I can't do that, even if it's horror, even if it's wrong, even if we're damned for it." "So we continue," the first priest says, not a question, a statement. "We continue." They return to work, repairing the coolant systems, prolonging the throne's function, ensuring that tomorrow and the day after and the day after that, another 1,000 souls can be fed to the fire. Because what else is there to do? This is the truth the Imperium exists within, the inescapable horror that underlies everything. You can't stop without dooming humanity. But continuing means accepting that you're a species that systematically consumes its own children. That you're a civilization built on industrial-scale violation of consciousness. That you're exactly as monstrous as the things you fight against, just with better marketing. You can't win, can't escape, can't even meaningfully refuse. You can only continue. Keep feeding the fire, keep telling yourself it's necessary, keep calling it holy, and hope desperately, futilely, that somehow, someday, there's a third option, a way out that doesn't involve either eternal horror or total extinction. But there isn't. There never was, there never will be, because this is Warhammer 40,000, and in the grim darkness of the far future, there are no good choices, only horrible ones and worse ones, only nightmare scenarios and apocalyptic scenarios. Only the slow death of horror accepted or the fast death of horror embraced. And humanity chooses the slow death, every day, every hour, every moment, chooses to feed the fire rather than face the darkness, chooses violation over extinction, chooses to be monsters if being monsters means surviving one more day. Marin, astropath Tertius Marin, has been serving for 53 years now. Most of her is gone. The erosion is nearly complete. She still performs her duties, still sends and receives messages, still guides new psychers to their fate. But the thing doing these actions is barely her anymore. More process than person, more program than consciousness. In rare moments, increasingly rare, perhaps once every few months now, enough of her original consciousness surfaces to remember. To truly remember, not just intellectually access memories, but emotionally connect to them. She remembers being 12, remembers accidentally killing Jarek, remembers the kind-faced missionary who told her she was blessed, remembers boarding the black ship with hope in her heart. She remembers believing she would serve and then go home, remembers thinking this would make her special, important, meaningful. She remembers the golden throne, remembers burning. Remembers the moment she understood, too late, always too late, that salvation and damnation were the same thing. In these moments of clarity, she wants to weep, wants to rage, wants to feel something about what was done to her, but she can't. The capacity for those emotions is gone, burned away decades ago. All that surfaces is understanding without feeling, knowledge without passion, the intellectual recognition that tragedy has occurred but no emotional resonance to give that recognition weight. She's a ghost operating her own body, a recording playing on loop, an echo that's forgotten what sound created it. And she knows with the certainty of someone who's been connected to the golden throne for over half a century, that her retirement is approaching. Soon, they'll bring her back to Terra, back to the throne room, back to the fire, and they'll burn what remains, fully, finally, forever. The part of her that's been burning in the Astronomicon for 53 years, the 60% that was consumed during the initial soul binding, will be reunited with the 40% that's been serving. The fragments will merge and burn together completely this time, and Marin will cease. Not die, cessation isn't death, just spread out, diffuse, transform from barely person to fully light. She should be terrified, should be desperate, should be fighting this fate with everything that remains. But the part that could fight is gone. What remains accepts it, not because it wants to, but because acceptance is all it's capable of. She continues serving, continues guiding children to the same fate, continues being complicit in the horror that consumed her, because that's all she can do, all she's allowed to do, all that remains of her is capable of doing. And in the Astronomicon, in the eternal fire, Jax continues burning. He's been burning for, he doesn't know how long. Time stopped having meaning ages ago, subjective centuries, millennia. There's no way to measure, no reference point, just endless burning. He's not Jax anymore, not really. The person who bore that name is long gone, consumed so thoroughly that reconstruction is impossible. What remains is, not nothing but close to nothing. Just the barest whisper of consciousness, so diffused and dissolved that calling it consciousness is generous. Just burning, just light. Just the experience of existing as fuel, untethered to identity or memory or hope or anything except service. And he'll continue burning, forever, because the Astronomicon never stops, because the feeding never ends, because 1,000 souls per day is the price of survival, and humanity pays that price. Every day, every hour, every moment, pays it willingly, or as willingly as can be managed when you've consumed their capacity for refusal, pays it while calling it holy, while painting it on cathedral ceilings, while teaching children to aspire to this fate, because the alternative is worse. And in the grim darkness of the far future, better than worse is the closest thing to victory humanity can achieve. Somewhere in Ultima Segmentum, a black ship arrives at a world called Brennus VI. It's an unremarkable world, mid-level hive world, reasonable tithe compliance, loyal to the Imperium in the exhausted way that most worlds are loyal. A girl watches the ship descend. She's 8 years old. Her name is Sira. She's been having strange dreams lately, colors that don't exist, sounds she feels rather than hears, moments where she knows things she shouldn't know. She's frightened, confused. Her parents noticed the strangeness and reported her, not out of cruelty, but because that's what loyal Imperial citizens do, because psychers are dangerous, because the Emperor must know of his gifted children. The missionaries emerge from the ship. One approaches Sira with a kind smile, a gentle voice. warm eyes that seem to understand her fear. "You don't need to be afraid," the missionary says. "You're blessed, chosen by the emperor himself. You're going to do something important, something that will help people. You're special." Sira wants to believe her. Wants so desperately to believe that her strangeness is actually blessing, that her fear is misplaced, that something good is waiting for her. "Will it hurt?" Sira asks, her voice small. The missionary's smile doesn't waver. She's answered this question 1,000 times. Will answer it 1,000 times more. "Only for a moment," she lies. "And then you'll understand, then you'll serve him forever. And through your service, you'll save billions. You're not strange, Sira, you're a hero." Sira believes her, or wants to believe her, or has no choice but to believe her because the alternative is too terrifying to contemplate. She takes the missionary's hand, allows herself to be led to the black ship, waves goodbye to her parents who weep with pride and grief and relief that their daughter has been chosen for something greater. The ship ascends, breaks through Brennus VI's atmosphere, engages its warp drive. Destination, Terra. Estimated time of arrival, 5 months. Time until soul binding, 6 months. Time until consumption, 6 months, 17 seconds. Sira doesn't know any of this. She's in her quarters aboard the black ship, kneeling before an aquila carved into the wall, praying. Thanking the emperor for choosing her, for making her special, for giving her life meaning. And 50,000 light years away in the heart of the Astronomicon, something that was once someone burns, and burns, and burns. The Imperium measures time in millennia. Individuals are statistics. Suffering is resource allocation. And the God Emperor of mankind, if he could speak, if there's enough consciousness left in that withered, burning form to produce thoughts that could be called speech, might say, "I never asked for this." Or he might say nothing at all, because the thing on the golden throne stopped having opinions somewhere around M32 when the last vestiges of humanity burned away and only function remained. But the mouth still opens. Metaphorically, metaphysically, the hunger still exists, the pull still operates. The consumption continues, 1,000 souls per day, every day, forever. The Astronomicon shines across the galaxy, beautiful and terrible and absolutely necessary. Navigators use its light to guide ships through hell. Astropaths use it to send messages across the void. Billions pray to it, seeing in its golden radiance the Emperor's grace and protection. They call it the Emperor's light, his divine radiance, the eye of Terra that never blinks, never sleeps, never stops watching over humanity's scattered children. They don't know it's a furnace, don't know it's screaming, don't know that every photon of that beautiful light was once a thought, a fear, a hope, a soul. Or maybe they do know. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the truth is taught that psychers are sacrificed to fuel the light and the citizens accept it, embrace it, call it holy, because the alternative is darkness, is extinction, is everything they've built crumbling into nothing. So they accept the horror, normalize it, make it sacred. Tell themselves that the burning is blessed, the sacrifice is noble, the suffering has meaning. And every single day, another 1,000 souls discover that meaning doesn't make it hurt less. That purpose doesn't prevent dissolution. That dying for humanity doesn't make dying any less terrifying. Still means burning. Still means losing yourself piece by piece, memory by memory, thought by thought. Still means discovering that your God's love is actually hunger, and you can't tell the difference until you're already being digested. But here's the thing. The final, crushing truth that we must confront. There's no one to blame, no villain, no evil mastermind who created this system out of malice. The Emperor isn't evil, he's desperate. Or he was desperate 10,000 years ago when he was still capable of something as human as desperation. He created the Astronomicon to save humanity, to give them a fighting chance against the darkness, to light their way through hell, and it worked. It's been working for 10,000 years. Humanity survives because of him, thrives, if you can call the Imperium thriving, because of his sacrifice and the sacrifice of billions of souls fed into his fire. The Imperium isn't evil, it's pragmatic. Cold, utilitarian, but not evil. It does what must be done to survive in a universe that wants humanity dead. It makes the hard choices. The impossible choices. The choices that damn the few to save the many. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica isn't evil. The missionaries who lie to children aren't monsters. They're servants of necessity, cogs in a machine that must keep turning or everything dies. There's no one to hate, no one to overthrow, no system to dismantle that wouldn't immediately result in apocalypse. There's just the machine, and the machine must run. And the machine runs on souls. And if you want humanity to survive, if you want the Imperium to endure, you accept that. You feed the machine. You become complicit in the horror, or you refuse. You reject the entire system as immoral. You declare that survival at this cost isn't survival worth having. And then you watch as everyone dies, as chaos wins, as the darkness consumes world after world, unopposed, until there's nothing left but screaming and the laughter of thirsting gods. Those are your choices, the only choices: horror or extinction, systematic violation or total annihilation, be monsters or be extinct. And humanity chooses monsters, every time, every day, every moment, because being monsters means surviving one more day. And surviving one more day means maybe, somehow, someday finding a better way. But there is no better way. There never was, there never will be. There's only the golden throne, and the fire, and the souls burning within it. And the light shining across the galaxy, beautiful and necessary and built from screaming. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But before the war, before the battles, before the heroism, before the glory and the sacrifice, there is the light. And the light is necessary. And the light is beautiful. And the light is hungry. And the light will never stop being hungry. And you might be next, not because you deserve it, not because you're special or chosen or blessed, just because you manifested psychic powers at the wrong time in the wrong place in the wrong universe, just because the fire needs fuel, and you're fuel, and fuel burns, and the Imperium calls this holy, paints it on cathedral ceilings, teaches children to aspire to it, frames consumption as communion and annihilation as apotheosis. And somewhere, maybe on your world, maybe on a world you've never heard of, a child is boarding a black ship right now, believing they're blessed, believing they're special, believing that something wonderful awaits them at the end of this journey. And in 6 months, they'll understand the truth. Too late to scream, too late to refuse, too late to do anything except burn, and the part of them that burns will remain conscious, will experience every moment of dissolution, will exist as fuel for subjective centuries dissolving slowly into light. And the Imperium will call this necessary, will call it righteous, will call it the price of survival, and they'll be right, because it is necessary, it is the price of survival, but that doesn't make it any less horrifying, any less obscene, any less unforgivable. It's just horror we've learned to live with, horror we've normalized, horror we've made holy, and the light shines on, and we call it beautiful, and the feeding never ends. The Astronomicon burns tonight as it has burned for 10,000 years, as it will burn for 10,000 more. If the Golden Throne holds, if the machinery doesn't fail, if the Mechanicus can keep patching together a dying god's life support just a little longer. And somewhere in its golden heart, Sira is arriving, is being led to the throne room, is approaching the presence, is feeling that overwhelming love and not yet understanding that love and hunger are the same thing. And somewhere in that same golden heart, Jax continues burning, has been burning so long that Jax is just a pattern the fire remembers, a shape made of light that once was a person. And Marin continues serving, continues guiding children to the fate that consumed her, continues being complicit because the part that could refuse is gone. And Kale continues sending messages, continues diving into the warp, continues eroding one transmission at a time into an echo that barely remembers being human. And the Emperor continues consuming, continues burning souls by the thousand, continues being the hunger wearing divinity like a mask, and humanity continues surviving. One more day, one more year, one more millennium, surviving because of the light, surviving because of the fire, surviving because it's willing to sacrifice anything, anyone, to delay the darkness just a little longer. This is the Imperium of man. This is the God Emperor's protection. This is the price of the eternal vigil. 1,000 souls per day, every day, forever, burning in the light, screaming in silence, serving beyond death, holy, necessary, unforgivable. And the worst part, the absolutely worst part that makes this tragedy complete is that you understand now. You see the necessity, you grasp why they do it. You comprehend that there is no alternative, no escape, no better option. You understand why humanity feeds its children to the fire. And understanding doesn't make it right, but it makes it yours, because now you're complicit too. Now you know. Now you carry the weight of this knowledge. Now you understand what the golden light truly is, and you can never unsee it, never unknow it, never look at the Imperium the same way again. Welcome to the grim darkness of the far future, where the Emperor protects, and the light is hungry, and you might be next.